Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 392. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's going on?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and we talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we have Titans Beast World issue 5, Titans Beast World Tour Star City issue 1, or at least Matt read it anyway, because he's a sucker.
Yeah. Short week, I kind of knew I was going to be on my own, and also it's Green Arrow. Pete's been pretty out on that, but someone had to do it.
We got Detective Comics 1081, The Flash issue 5, Green Arrow issue 8, The Penguin issue 6, Amazon's Attack issue 4, Power Girl issue 5, and the main story from Batman, The Brave and the Bold issue 9 to wrap things up. So it's a healthy enough week, I would say.
Yeah, pretty good. I didn't have, even though we are recording a little bit early, I didn't have any issue finishing on time, which is, I can't say the same for other days or other weeks.
Oh, it was great. I did sometimes on a Saturday I need to like wake up and like, I've got 3 hours to read all my books because I couldn't.
Yep.
I had to sleep till a certain time. It was kind of chill, just gradually picking at them today because we were recording on a Friday in a later time slot. So, hey ho, that is what's coming up on the show. So, are you sick, Matt? You said you were a bit sick before we started.
Yeah, I might be fighting something. We've had some really crazy weather here in the desert. It was really cold and wet, and then it was just wet, and now it's warm again, despite being almost February. So I just woke up and my chest was all feeling icky. I got a slight cough.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So no fever, nothing yet. I say yet, but yeah, nothing. A little bit of Taco Bell and Baja Blast after the show won't remedy.
You son of a bitch. You're almost making me want some food, but for me it'll be like after 2 or 3 a.m. by the time we're done, so I won't have the option, sadly.
Do places over there deliver that late?
I don't maybe 1 or 2 places deliver that late, but not. It's definitely not been a thing forever if it is a thing.
Because even here, that's kind of pushing it.
Yeah.
Vegas is a city that never sleeps, but I don't know too many restaurants that are delivering it too.
Nah, I think it's a Friday. I think Friday and Saturdays, a lot of places will go till about 1 a.m. But all the rest of the nights, I think most places are done by 11 p.m.
So will you try to scrounge something and try to cook something, or will you just go to bed and not eat?
It depends if I'm hungry.
Yeah. There's nothing like that where you like. I've done where I've gotten home late from like a concert or whatever, and I didn't want to stop because I'm trying to eat better. But then I go home and there's really nothing that I want. So I'm looking through the leftovers, or I'm like, I can make a grilled cheese, but then I got to turn the stove on, But then I just usually end up eating a bowl of cereal because that's easy.
Anywho, we're here for comics, and we'll start with Matt's favorite segment, as we always do, which is the ComiXology Top 10, or the list formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10. Starting on Tuesday, because they're separated by day. Matt, what do you think the number 1 book from Tuesday is?
I'm going to take a big swing on this one. I'm going to guess Batman Brave and the Bold 9.
No.
Dang, okay. Beast World 5.
That's correct, Beast World 5. Yeah. So number 2 is Detective Comics.
Wow, hey, let's go.
That's a lot higher than normal, actually. I wonder why that's up so much.
Yeah?
Weird.
Because people have been listening to us and they're smart.
maybe the collection that came out for the previous set, and now people are back on the singles. I don't know. Number 3 is Batman Brave and the Bold. So I think that King and Gerads story did push it up from where it normally would be. 4 is Flash, 5 is Green Arrow, 6 is Beast World Tour Star City, 7 is Power Girl, 8 is The Penguin, 9 is Amazon's Attack, and 10, beating Harley Quinn, which is number 11, is the latest Flash collection, the final Jeremy Adams volume, is actually number 10. So, yeah, Harley Quinn on digital ain't doing so hot.
Not at all. That's wild to me that a Flash collection. Nothing against Adams. I love that run, but over Harley, that's weird, wild stuff.
Yeah, it'd be weird for any collection. It's more just that typically the new single issues will always do better than the collections digitally in the week they came out. But Hey ho. Also, DC Power Celebration was out this week as well. That's number 12, which makes it's a $10 anthology book. I'm not surprised at that, but so nothing too much to say other than the fact that Harley got beat by a trade. So there you go. Wednesday. Let's see if you can deduce what number 1 is.
I'm looking. There's a book I think it might be, but then there's All Reliable. I'm gonna guess with Resurrection of Magneto 1.
You know what?
Huh?
You actually might be right. You are right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You started saying might be, and I was like, "What is the list repopulating as we talk?"
No, I was looking at something else.
Is it a live look?
I was looking at something else, so I wasn't looking at it when you said it.
Good to know. Good to know.
Number 2 is Star Wars Thrawn Alliances.
That was going to be my other guess, but I went with X-Men over Star Wars because of, current trends.
3 is Marvel Gods, issue 4. 4 is Ghost Machine One Shot. This is an image book.
That's not even in the top. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yeah, I don't even recognize the creator on this. Metal Zucht. Yep, fair enough. Number 5 is Immortal Thor.
Wait, was that a joke? Because that is not who's the creator.
No, it's the first thing listed on the Amazon page. Let me.
Got you.
It says authors, Metal Zucht, Lamont McGee, and Brad Meltzer.
Wow. So League of Comic Geeks has the first 2 names listed as Jeff Johns and Ivan Reis.
Oh, there's a lot of names in here, actually.
Yeah. So it looks like it is a collection of their what was it called? Their new line that they're doing.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. So it says Geiger, Redcoat, Rook, the Rockefellers, and many, many more. So it's the creator, and so it also has Johns, Ivan Reis, Tomasi, the other name that you said that I'm not gonna go, and Manipul. Those are the ones that I have listed. So,
interesting. Number 6 is ROM. Number 7 is X-Force. Number 8 is Power Rangers, issue 116. I didn't even realize they kept that main book going still, but fair enough. I mean, I'm not surprised there's still Power Rangers, but I thought they'd stopped the main series and started doing lots of other spin-offs or various things, but fair enough. Number 9 is Universal Monsters Dracula, which is by Tynan, which for some reason has a 1-star rating on Amazon. Someone's hate reviewed it, seemingly.
Fun times. And
then number 10 is Gargoyles Dark Ages. What's notable here, there's a really high percentage of non-Marvel books in this top 10. I guess Marvel just didn't put out as many books this week.
No, there's a lot. If you go to League of Comic Geeks, there's there's a couple Spider-Man, there's an Immortal Thor, there's a Spider-Woman, there's a Punisher, there's a Daredevil, so...
Yeah. Okay, it's only 3. I thought it was 4, but Gargoyle says Disney, so I assume that's technically Marvel that published that.
Yeah.
But that's a technicality.
Yeah.
Technicality. Yeah. Okay. I mean, very odd list from Wednesday here. There's a lot of things I don't really recognize or know what they are. Like, what's ROM? It looks like a Marvel book, but I don't know what ROM is.
The only ROM I know is ROM the Space Knight. And that wasn't, I don't think that was Marvel.
Oh, this is an omnibus. It's not even a single issue, it's an omnibus.
I was gonna say, that's not even coming up on the League of Comic.
ROM, the original Marvel Years Omnibus Volume 1.
Wow.
That's interesting, because at least back when I was paying more attention to the collections, I don't think Marvel put their omnibuses on digital. They put their regular paperbacks and maybe their sort of deluxe hardcovers, but they didn't tend to digitally sell their omnibuses. Maybe they've changed their status on that. But
or maybe because it's ROM, it was easier to put that out digitally instead of physically.
Oh yeah, I mean maybe it is just digital. I don't know. But hey ho. Yeah, that's kind of wild. That's $50 and it's number 6 in the top 10.
Hey man, ROM sells apparently.
I've never heard of it, but I'll take your word. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the ComiXology top 10. As far as news goes, there's not really proper news this week. Although there was one little tidbit from James Gunn that seemed worth mentioning. Someone asked them this week if, and I had forgotten this was even announced because it's been 3 years, the article pointed out, since this was announced. But Ta-Nehisi Coates was writing a Superman movie. Someone asked him, is that still a thing? Is that still in development? And he gave a pretty definitive yes to that question. So maybe that'll still happen someday. Although apparently the one other thing he said is that it'll be outside of the DCU. Yeah. It won't be part of the universe that he's building, which is interesting because, they've announced like 8 or 10 projects that are part of the universe, and we've got Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2, which is going to be separate. So there's also going to be a Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie separate at some point. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm still not convinced it's happening, but
when they start doing some like casting announcements and other things, I'll get excited.
Or even a director would be.
Yeah,
it would be a start. But yeah, that seemed worth mentioning, even though I'm not convinced. Okay, yeah. I remain skeptical to say the least. So, yeah, very good. All right. Well, yeah. Joe, I was thinking, because they announced this week. This is I'm dipping out of DC here, although it's comics related. Is they announced that Jason Aaron's doing the new TMNT, like sort of soft reboot, right? With a new #1 and all that stuff. It made me go, oh, maybe this is a good time to just read through that whole series because it's just refreshing, and whether or not I want to jump out of the new one or not is another thing. But I've read like 70 issues of the original run before, and I was thinking I might start from the start again and just sort of go, because it's been a while and whatnot. So I was thinking I might start chipping away at that. I don't know how quickly I'll go through it. I might just do an issue a night kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was toying with the idea of doing the whole IDW TMNT run. I think issue 147 came out this week.
Oof.
So
you're about halfway through.
I'm halfway, but I'm starting from the scratch again because it's been so long since I read the first chunk. I'll be selective though with what minis or tie-in things I bother reading. I'll stick to if they seem interesting, I'll do it. I know they put, because I remember them putting out a lot of one shots early on that I just remember thinking were worthless and didn't add anything. So I'll just happily skip those. It's when I get to the half that I'm not as familiar with, where I'm not sure what's essential outside of the main book. But I'm sure there's someone who'll tell me. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure there's resources out there.
Yeah, I'm very impressed they've kept it going as long as they have, because it literally started like a month before the New 52. So that gives you a sense of time since that thing kicked off and how long it's been going. So very curious to maybe dive into that, because I really like all of 2023. I barely touched a comic book that wasn't DC. I just, for whatever reason, I wasn't doing a lot of extra reading. I was just reading for the show, and that was it.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't really like the idea of like getting piled on with a lot of other books, but I like the idea of just having one project that I can just stick to, and I think that's the one I'm going to tackle.
It's one of those things where I'm just like, DC, stop putting out stuff that I want to read. All right, it was a lot easier when there was stuff that I was just like, I don't need that. But it's consistently things, I look about stuff that I could drop for the week, and there's nothing really that sneaks up. So, as it keeps going, because I want to go back and finish Immortal Hulk. So I never even finished that. So, and now there's an Immortal Thor. So,
yeah, although Greg Land's coming to ruin that, so.
Thanks.
Enjoy that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I've still been on a heavy movie binge. I've been watching a lot of movies, and that's.
Yes.
I haven't done quite as many this week as I did the past few weeks, but it's still a pretty decent amount, including possibly the worst movie I have ever seen this week.
The fact that you watched that and you said that made me happy.
I am, of course, referring to The Hip Hop Witch from the year 2000, starring Eminem and various hip hop artists, who did not have a script. I didn't know what it was when I started watching it, really, and it became apparent after a few minutes that all that movie is, other than a few scenes that they filmed to try and like pretend there's a plot by inserting them, is it's just someone has went up to various hip-hop stars and said, hey, can you ad-lib some lines that you've survived an encounter with a hip-hop witch? And then they just make shit up. So nothing actually fits together. Nothing one of them says even sounds similar to what one of the other ones say. And it's nothing. It's a nothing movie. It's 85 minutes of just torture to sit through. There was one element that got a little funny towards the end, but it's not worth anything else. It's
yeah, man, there's I'm looking at some of the names involved here, and it was a parody of the Blair Witch Project.
I mean,
so yeah,
I don't know if you'd get that from watching it, to be honest.
No, I'm looking at the wiki article for it, and I not that I roll like super deep in hip hop. There's names I recognize, and after about halfway down this list, there's people I just don't know.
I never knew there were so many hip hop artists with the number of people that show up for a quick on camera segment. Some of them, obviously, they got more time with, so they split up their thing over the course of the movie. So it keeps coming back to Eminem every few minutes, and somehow every single time it comes back to him, he starts talking about how the witch put her finger up his ass, and that's like something that comes back every single time. And
it's such an Eminem thing too, where you know he's like, how long do you think I can keep this going for?
And then, like, 2/3 through, I thought he was finally done talking about it, but then he started talking about putting his finger up the witch's ass, and that's where I lost it. That's where I just lost the will to live.
Did you finish this movie?
I did finish this movie.
Why?
Because I was forced to. It was a stream thing. It wasn't something I chose to watch.
Gotcha.
It was inflicted upon me.
See, so I don't open myself up to strangers.
Right? And there's a twist ending, if you can even call it that, with the reveal of who the hip hop witch is. I shouldn't spoil it. No one's ever going to watch it, admittedly, so maybe I shouldn't spoil it. But it's like, it scarred me. I don't know how I feel about it.
Man, the guy that directed this has directed so many music videos.
Directed. I'm just going to put that in air quotes there.
Yeah. But I'm looking at, like, there's some big names he's worked with, and he thought this was his jump to Hollywood, was a hip hop witch. Oh man. That said, not a lot of these are great videos as I'm going through them. There's not a lot of them have like a, it's not like David Fincher doing Madonna, right, where it really sticks out. So, but yeah,
yeah, rough times.
I'm not sorry you had to watch that.
Also, weird trend. So, last week I watched Poor Things.
Yep.
Right, which was very, 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 very good. Highly recommend it. And then at the weekend I watched No Hard Feelings, which was okay. Had some laughs, but I
don't think that you would have enjoyed it as much as I did, but I'm glad to see it got a passing rating from you.
And then I watched Saltburn earlier this week. Right? And I think I found it really strange that in the span of 2 weeks I watched 3 2023 movies, all of which had extreme full frontal nudity.
Yep.
And I'm not sure what happened where a bunch of actors around my age all at the same time went, screw it, let's just show everything off.
I believe the phrase is, why not?
And I'm not complaining. It was just such a bizarre, like, short span of time to get so much of it over, a week and a half.
I will say, though, the one in No Hard Feelings, I've never laughed harder during a full frontal scene.
Oh, yeah, it's a comedy scene. Yeah, it's played for laughs.
And I was not expecting it. And so in the theater, like, it was one of those ones where I had to take a breath. Because, it comes, not that it comes from out of left field because of what sets it up, but I was not expecting it to go full go. And it does full go. So...
yeah.
I'm thankful that Saltburn didn't get nominated for anything, because now I feel like I don't need to see it. So we're good.
Why would you have a problem having to see it, Matt?
I've heard things. I've heard about sounds that are made, and I don't want to watch that.
Sounds that are made.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like off a drain. I'm okay. I'm okay. Poor Things, it was on my radar anyways because of Emma, you know. And then, I get to finally see Flowers of the Killer Moon, so that's good. I'll squeeze that gargantuan piece of cinema in at some point.
I feel like there's some jokes to be made here.
About Saltburn?
No, about you just want to see Poor Things because you want to see Emma Stone naked, but
that's not the only reason. So
the only reason.
The jokes. However, I heard there's a lot of themes with Barbie that overlap. And this is almost like a kind of different take on that.
Poor Things is a much better version, though.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there are themes that are shared. So it's just funny that these two movies that could not seem to be polar opposite, right, share some thematic elements. And so, but yes, however, that's not why it was high on my list with Emma Stone. I watch most things with Emma Stone in them. So it just happens that that's part of the plot. The actual plot, not like in the universe. I can't even talk right now. Not in the internet's form of plot, but yes. Also, Mark Ruffalo. I like most things he's in. Heard he kind of steals the movie in his scenes, so I look forward to that.
Okay, well, I would say yes, except for the fact that Emma Stone's also just like killing it constantly. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to say that he steals the scenes because he tends to be sharing them with her. But I get what the sentiment is. What you said. So so I'm glad. But yeah, I've seen that you saw Poor Things. I've seen a lot of. This is the only time I really feel inadequate is this time of year when I'm just not having time to watch movies and you're just charging through them. Head down, and then I get it from Connor as well, and then Dan. I'm surrounded. Then Alden, but don't tell anybody. I don't really take his stuff in there because if I took his, I'd watch Maestro, which I have access to. I just don't have the desire to watch. Well, Connor's different this year because last year he didn't watch a movie until May or something like that. Like he for whatever reason last year watched almost nothing. Like he watched a handful of movies all year. He was reading books and doing other stuff with his spare time or something. I don't know. I've been doing it. My pace is very good. It's not going to keep up for too much longer, I don't think. But it's definitely the most busy movie January I've had in a good number of years.
But I tend to look at you and Dan, and if it gets passing from both of you, it's making the list. So
yes, but our friend Dan does have some. He sometimes he props up some really shitty looking action movies because he likes action movies. But
he's I like to think that I split the difference between you two.
He saw The Beekeeper and said it was pure cinema, and I'm like, I've not seen it, but I've got a funny feeling I'm not going to agree with that statement.
Yeah, you're gonna think that the Jason Statham movie's not pure cinema. Huh? Weird.
I would argue that the vast majority of people are not going to think that the Jason Statham movie is pure cinema.
And that's why I love Dan. Tremors is also his favorite movie, so this is very on brand.
I'm fine with loving Tremors. Tremors is a good time. It's a very well paced, well acted, fun B movie.
However, today I did see the new Dev Patel movie. That's a John Wick. I don't want to call it a ripoff, but a John Wick inspired film. And the first person I saw comment on the trailer was Dan, and he looks very excited.
Oh no. Is it actually John Wick-esque, or is it just an action movie? Because we can't just call every action movie that's after John Wick.
I haven't seen the trailer yet because I didn't have time to watch it. But John Wick-esque about a revenge that's very flashy and very, very action-oriented. It's Dev Patel starring and directing from Slumdog Millionaire. So,
I don't think the revenge element makes it John Wick. I think it's only John Wick-esque if the action scenes are like John Wick, because revenge was already a thing for action movies long before John Wick came riding in on his dead dog.
True, but when I hear something is John Wick-esque, it's not just action. It's a certain kind of action and revenge element. To me, for it to be John Wick-esque, there has to be a revenge element to it. Or, someone taking something back. It's like Nobody. I don't know if you saw that one with Odenkirk. you know.
That's not nobody.
Yeah, I felt that was John Wick-esque in its
well, yeah, but
there's
an element there that you're leaving out that makes that John Wick-esque.
Yes,
it's John Wick-esque because he's living a normal life, and it's a secret that he's got a history that gives him all these extra skills. That's part of it. Equalizer's a John Wick-esque in that sense, but the action in Equalizer doesn't feel anything like John Wick, so you can sort of maybe
that's more of an action. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna tell you what this one's called. Monkey Man is the one. Yeah. Produced by Jordan Peele.
I just think that all action movies are going to be thrown around and compared to John Wick, and I don't think it's. I just don't think it fits most of them as that most people are actually going to use it for. I guess is what I'm saying.
True, and I would say that, but this one and the first thing that I'm seeing in multiple different film websites are calling it John Wick-esque.
Oh, I'm not arguing that it isn't. I don't know. I was asking the question.
I wish I had watched the trailer. I wish I had time today, but I was busy reading comics on my breaks. So yeah.
Speaking of which,
we should get to it.
Let's get to some comics. So we will kick things off this week with Titans Beast World issue 5, which is Tom Taylor with Ivan Reis back on art, but he's got some help from Eduardo Pansica. Who's doing some fill-in duties, I guess, if you want to call it that, on this book. And one of the first things I loved about this issue is that, other than just a little bit of Raven being sad in space with the others because Garrow's floating in space dead, is it's a press conference where the whole point of it is that, hey, Amanda Waller's been working in the shadows to protect our great nation all these years, but it's time she stepped into the light. So this is Amanda Waller's coming out party to the public, where she makes this speech, and this I thought was fantastic writing from Taylor, because as she starts praising Chunk, or full name Chester Runk,
right.
As she starts praising him, saying, he sacrificed himself, we tried to save him, but it was impossible, but he gave his life to save everyone. I think the writing's so good here, because in the context of the story that we read last issue, this is so slimy and so corrupt and such a lie that you can't help but feel a little sick to your stomach as she's saying all this.
He had no agency.
Not an iota of agency.
So all this talk of me here, it's this is a new version of Amanda Waller, right? Because the Waller we're pretty familiar with is do anything for her country, even if that means doing stuff that's criminal, right? This is straight up super villainy. I would expect this from Lex Luthor. This is a Luthor plot.
This feels like she's finally making her play for what her end game or what she's wanted the whole time. In fact, the word that really got me when she was talking about Chunk was that he volunteered. Just to go back to you saying he had no agency. That's the word she used. He volunteered. Bitch. No, he didn't.
Yeah. Well, and she also says because he lost his son to the creatures.
Well, technically, yeah.
Peacemaker iced the sun. We know there's a way out, right? There's a cure for this.
Which, and obviously that makes the big threat that's introduced here, is that Waller goes on to say that steps must be taken to kill all of the beast people. And the press obviously freak out when she says this. They start asking questions, and she's like, no, this is the only action that we can take. This is how we protect the billions on the planet, is to kill the million or so that's turned into monsters. And that's the thing, again, we as readers already know that this is not permanent. It's if they get the parasites to leave the people, they just go back to normal. We've seen it happen to Nightwing already. We've seen it happen to several people already.
Right.
So this is sickening to read, where she's saying this and try to convince the public this is the only thing they can do. Yeah. So it sets up just a really good course of action for the main characters, the heroes, because we cut to the heroes and wait, she wants to murder all these people, and that doesn't need to happen. So we can instantly get behind the heroes and what their goal is now, which is to stop Waller at all costs, because holy shit, that's just genocide.
Yeah, because Waller before has been shades of gray, and that's kind of what they were kind of operating under, right? About this, but now she's completely gone mask off. So how do they respond? Because no matter what now, I mean, if they look like they're trying to save the people that are transformed into animals, they look like they're working against the cause, and that's kind of what her framework is, right? That this is the Titans' fault for allowing Beast Boy to save them by taking out the Necrostar, right? That's what we saw. That's what we know what happened. But to her, Beast Boy went rogue, and now he's the problem for all of this, and we can't trust his friends to save us. And it does. It puts the doubt into the superhero community from the general public.
Yeah. I think a lot of what this issue is, which is, there's various things going on, but one of the big things that happens is that Nightwing just goes to speak to Waller and tries to convince her to not do this. And I think the big thing here is, like you were saying, like up until now, Waller's been these shades of grey. She's doing all these shady things, but arguably for ultimately good reasons, at least in her mind. But there's a moment where Nightwing is trying to talk her out of it, and then he just has this realization in the scene: wait, you want to kill all these people? And it's just a look on her face, and it's kind of like, I think this issue is like the realization from the hero is just how, I don't know if evil's necessarily the right word. It is evil, but just how Amanda Waller is.
She's definitely, she's playing her own game too, because it just doesn't end at that conversation where he makes it, they play into her trap, right? Because this is, she wants to kill all those people, but ultimately her goal is to get the public to flip on the heroes.
Yeah, she wants them to hate the Titans and hate the superheroes.
And so basically what they're going to do is, have Cyborg intercept the drones, because what she's going to do is fire up a bunch of military drones to go, into these cities and exterminate the targets. And so what Cyborg's like, well, this is an easy shutdown. I'm just going to use my, computer powers, that side of him, to go and shut them all down, which Waller wants, right? So every decision that they're trying to make as heroes are playing into her ultimate plan. And it really seems like they've been outmaneuvered here.
Yeah. I mean, she straight up says that she'd have killed Beast Boy years ago, if she had the chance, or if she could. And obviously this all leads to her big reveal, which is who Dr. Hate is. And this is actually a good bit of writing here again, that early on in the issue, the book takes time to reiterate Raven's stone and the demon version of her is in that stone. So the big reveal at the end of the issue is that Dr. Hate is the other version of her. Her stone's been empty for a long time, and this alternate version of her is Dr. Hate. So you get this final page of her in shock, looking at her evil self, smiling, and that's how the book ends. But that early stuff though is very sweet. Like there's when she's talking to Donna about how she wants to go full revenge mode. She wants to go kill Waller and kill everyone who's responsible, but that's not what Gar would want. Gar's better. He's got ideals and all that. And there's a little sweet joke at the end of that scene where it's like, yeah, what a jerk. It's like, yeah, he's such an ass. As like they're hugging and embracing each other. It's very sweet.
Which that's the spirit of Beast Boy, though, right? Like, man, he would have wanted us to make the right decision. Not what's easy. And again, that plays right into what his ultimate mission was that we got in Titans, of wanting to basically help the planet. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be right. The reveal, though, I think is a little bit, not that I want a full backstory, but us having read that one story where Dr. Hate went rogue and tried to, go into those realms, right? Trying to go back and figure out that that's Raven and stuff. It just, to me, it doesn't really fit. So again, it feels like these tie-ins are kind of just, shotgunned into it and kind of just make do with what you can, and that's fine. And
yeah, but is that a critique of this issue or a critique of that tie-in?
That's what I mean. That's a critique of that tie-in, knowing like did that writer know who Dr. Hate was gonna end up being? Right? You'd
have to think they did. That'd be crazy to make them write an issue like that and not know who the character actually is.
I mean, maybe it's gonna pay off after this, right? With that team that forms.
Honestly, though, I'd forgotten that issue, and even though you're telling me, I remember reading that special, but I don't remember anything that happened in it beyond just the broad strokes of what it was.
Just thinking about that and trying to make that fit too, because I don't hate this reveal. I like the idea that it's Raven's evil soul self, and that's why it's able to do all of this evil stuff, and why it was able to affect Garo so well, right? Because when Dr. Hate goes into Garo's brain, like to him, it's just Raven, right? So he wouldn't offer any resistance, and so it makes that seem even more devious than it already was.
Yeah, I think the reveal doesn't blow my socks off, but I think it's by far more interesting than just here's a villain that was under there that we just didn't predict.
They were teasing a Titan, right, too, and we were trying to figure out which Titan it could be. I think
technically is still true. It was a Titan,
right? And I think Taylor kind of walked that line pretty effectively. Because it doesn't feel like a letdown, but it's also, like you said, it doesn't knock your socks off. I think it's a good story beat.
But that's the thing, though, is I don't think anything could have knocked her socks off. What possible former Titan would have been such a shock that wouldn't have made us go, oh, why are they doing this, or who's this? I don't think there was a oh my god, what a twist coming. This is a bit more interesting because it makes it more personal what's happened to Gar, because now it's like this is going to make Raven feel guilty because it was kind of part of her that helped manipulate this into existence. Like that is a far more interesting story beat than anything else we could have got by this turning out to be I don't know, bumblebees under the mask. I don't know. Yeah,
Bumblebee or Boy Blue or any of these random Titans that we haven't seen in forever, right? Lagoon Boy, So, but no, cool. I liked it, and the idea of a chaotic Raven on top of it, like that's kind of scary, right? Because Raven is constantly trying to keep herself in check, and this is a Raven that doesn't want to do that.
I also appreciate that it instantly ties it more to the characters, because I think Dr. Hate has been the thing that's felt the most separated from everything else going on. We've been kind of waiting for Dr. Hate to feel more as a part of the actual main thrust of the story, and it has felt kind of like, it was teased at the end of the last event as a big part of this upcoming Beast World, and it's kind of felt like, it's kind of, they're around, they pop in and out or whatever, but they've not been the central focus of it, other than maybe that one shot. But this instantly, like I said, because it turns out to be a part of Raven or another side of Raven, instantly feels like, okay, there's a lot of emotional weight that just ties it to that character now, and instantly just makes it feel a part of everything that's going on. So I kind of appreciate that. I also want to point out a scene just after the heart-to-heart that Raven and Donna have. There's a great little scene where Detective Chimp is sort of talking about how all the monster people and how they're feeling confused right now, and how he's empathizing with them because he's felt those things, and humans being mean to him and angry at him and hunting him. He knows how those things feel. So I think the book does a really good job of giving you a sense of, again, just the stakes of what we're fighting for here, the stakes of what the characters are trying to stop. They're trying to save all these innocent people that Waller's just going to cross off. They're just going to, we're going to kill them all. Yeah. And like you said, a big part of this is that she can then say, we had to kill 1 million people because the Titans screwed up. That's on them. Yeah. So that's a big thing. Yeah. I will say, though, these few scenes in the middle, you can tell the art changed. This is where the different artist was really kind of in there. By the time we go back to Waller and Peacemaker, it looks like it's back to Reis to me. I don't know if you agree with that. Oh, no, actually, maybe not.
I think a lot of the Waller stuff is Pansica, because the Reis stuff has it's a different inker.
No, it was the first page again with Waller looked like it was Reis, but then the next few pages after looked back to Pansica again. So, is it just like there's a point in the book where it switches and then never goes back? Is that how this is?
No, because after Waller talks, it looks like the stuff with the Titans is Reis. Okay. Right, and then it goes through the heart-to-heart with Donna, Detective Chimp, Nightwing. And then when it gets back to Waller and Peacemaker, it looks like it's Pansica again.
Wait, are you saying the stuff with Chimps?
I think that's Reis.
Okay, that page is, but the page after with Cyborg, Wally, and Dick, that's not Reis.
Me there.
I'm looking at Cyborg's face. There's no way that's Reis drawing that face.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's the heavier inks that I'm used to with Reis that kind of have me
I mean, I suppose there's something to be said that we're struggling to pinpoint exactly the pages, but there's definitely some pages that stand out as being more one artist than the other.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a whole fight between Dick and Peacemaker when he first goes to speak to Waller. We didn't really mention it because it's not. I mean, it's a fun little fight, but it's not the meat of the issue.
It's what we love Taylor doing with Dick, and that is, Peacemaker's like, oh, you have these stupid sticks, but you have every part of you is armored except your head. That makes it the target. Why don't you wear a helmet? And so Dick ends up hitting Peacemaker and turning the helmet around to, blind him. And it's very funny. Like, again, that's what Taylor's done throughout the Nightwing run, where it's this very serious moment that we get laughs out of. And Dick's kind of like, that's why I don't wear a helmet,
and then it gets super dark because just to go back to the Waller stuff and what she's actually up to. I mean, obviously we said she wants everyone to hate the Titans, and now they look bad because they've hacked into the military. But she specifically says that people don't want heroes; they want someone to blame and someone to hate. And this was actually kind of hitting a chord here because this felt like it was really starting to say something. Because this is very much a critique of any government or military making the enemy out to be a monster and giving people to blame someone, right? Like so many political forces who rile up their crowd because they say, hey, all your problems are the blame of this other group of people. This felt like it was kind of tapping into that a little bit, and it felt like the book's actually saying something, which honestly I think that's probably on the rare side for a comic book event to have a little bit of subtext. I mean, I'm not saying it's super deep or it's that hard to see. No. It's pretty surface level, but it's still more than I think most comic events will have.
Right, and the fact that we associate Waller with the government because that's been her role up to this point, it really drives that point home of this is, of them creating the other, and that's what people are going to hate. It's not necessarily the heroes; it's the idea. And if you can make people hate an idea, then you already got them.
I think, Waller in some ways is really scary because she's like some of the worst politicians on the planet, except she's much, much smarter than the real politicians. And that makes her very, very, very dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then might be in the other issue. We find out that she's behind the Bureau of Sovereignty, right? She's the one that's running all of that stuff. I think it was in this one. Maybe I don't know. I read too many books.
Yeah, I don't remember
too close together
being here.
But yeah, maybe that was at Amazon's attack, and it's not Waller at all. It's somebody else. But there's someone government involved. So
yeah. I honestly, the biggest critique I'd have for this issue is having the two artists and the art being inconsistent as a result. Some pages are very good, like some of those pages where Waller's scowling as she's like happy that the Titans have intervened. That stuff looks great.
It's kind of Joker-esque in that because it's this dark smile.
Oh yeah. So she's got the scowl down and she's got the big grin on. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That stuff's pretty great. And I love where this book's taken Waller with this issue and just how evil she kind of is with how she's manipulating these events and toying with everything. By using Chunk as this like. He volunteered and sort of talking about it like she didn't force them into it, to her plans with the Titans and her willingness to kill a million people. If she even ever did want to kill the million people, if that was not just to lure the Titans in to make them look bad. Either way, all of it is so conniving. It's great. It's great character development for a villain and someone that we can now really root for the Titans to try and win against, which is cool. And
there's definitely the stakes have definitely ramped up now with Waller, right? Because if she gets away with this, what else? What's next?
So I think that stuff is fantastic. I think the Raven stuff and then the reveal of Dr. Hate is not as good as that stuff, but I still think it's solid, and I'm still very interested in seeing how they have Raven handle this and how we deal with this in the next issue.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. And is Trigon gonna make an appearance? Because I mean, that's all he's ever wanted is her to embrace that dark side. So not dark side. He doesn't want her to hug Darkseid, the character, but her whole origin is around being a vessel for Trigon. So but definitely a like again talking through that Raven reveal was made me enjoy it a lot more than just reading it early when it dropped, and I was like, okay, that's good, but how personal this is now to her and to the Titans and what it meant to Gar. So Taylor's, again, he has a way of getting into these characters' heads, and putting that on the page in a way that I can't remember many other writers doing.
Yeah. So what are you rating Titans Beast World 5, Matt?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I was thinking 8.5. I think it doesn't quite go a bit higher than that just because the inconsistent art.
Yeah.
And it also has to be compared to previous issues, and that last issue with like sending Chunk into space to kill Garo was really good. So it's got stiff competition from itself, but does quite well. All right, Titans Beast World Tour Star City issue 1. I elected not to read this for my own sanity, but Matt, for some reason, thought he wants to complete the set and do the final. I think it's the final.
I think this has got me into so much trouble. Not like actual trouble, but just overcommitting to these things. I never feel more like Connor than when I just say I'll read it because I read the rest. I gotta find a way to break that completionist thing, and it's so hard. So
wait, does Connor have that issue?
Not that, but remember when he said he was gonna finish Red Hood until they got together? And
that's the one example. I feel like Connor is far more like happy to drop things than either of us.
I think he's learned. I think he's learned to do that. And I don't know. Stay tuned. Keep watching. Because that's been the struggle, is Matt versus the pull list. Like the only reason I keep reading Batman is because Pete's still reading Batman. If Pete stopped reading Batman, I'd be happy. But
but we have good conversations about it.
We do, and that's why. And I wish a good conversation would come from these tie-ins. And so far, outside of the Flash, I felt like the Flash one kind of stood on its own because it did some fun things with the premise. This one tries, and it's these are the Star City characters. So we got a lot of arrows, and I'm trying to think also the Justice Society shows up in this one because of Emmy. So Emmy is still a friend of Stargirl, so that's how they get her into this. But yeah, I'm trying to look at these creative teams as we have it going, and Leah Comic Geeks used to. They still do. All right, so the first story is called Like Father, and it's the first half of this. Not the first half, but there's 4 stories, and this one pays off in the back end with the backstory. And this is by Josh Williamson and Jamal Campbell, so the art's great because it's Jamal Campbell drawing action sequences with Green Arrow and Connor Hawk, but it's those two going to the aquarium in Star City as this is going on, because they're fighting some of these creatures, and they find out that the ones in Star City are a little bit different than some of the other ones, and that trail leads them to the aquarium where the Resurrection Twins are doing stuff. And if you remember the Task Force Z, the 2 women that were in charge of that, those are the Resurrection Twins. And there's some stuff, because this is written by Williamson, that it made me take notice, is that the Resurrection Twins noticed that Grafton Farm are claiming Metropolis and Man-Bat's claiming Gotham. So let's give me a little peek of, there seems to be some mad sciencey like subplot going on in all of Williamson's books, right? Because you got, of course, in Superman, we've talked about that. But I didn't realize that Man-Bat was such a big part of his Batman and Robin. I mean, I'm assuming that's where it's going, because I don't see any other book that he's writing where that would pop up. But they're working on their how they can make these Star City creatures better, and so a bunch of them get the drop on Ollie and Connor, and then as they're taking them out, 2 of them go into the Resurrection Twins, 2 of the Garo guys, and turns them into like sea otters, and as Ollie uses a taser arrow to take them out, a bunch of these other creatures attack him, and that's where that one ends. The second story is called Birds of a Feather, and it's by Ryan, I think it's Parrott with 2 T's, and Roger Cruz on the art. This is probably I would have to say, the strongest art. It's the thing that stuck with me the most in this one. But this is just Red Canary, who remember her from other things. I think she was in Dark Crisis. I don't remember where she showed up, but
it sounds familiar. I remember Red Canary existing.
So it's Red Canary finally getting to team with Black Canary, who's her idol, and it's a lot of self-doubt for her, and her going through the motions of trying to be a hero, but also not trying to make it worse. And Dinah has some words of encouragement for her until what looks like, I'm guessing it's Cheshire, because they draw Cheshire's beast form. It's her, it has to be her because it's her costume, but she looks like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. So that was a fun little artistic take. But they drop down on an ambulance that's full of people. So Dinah and Red Canary end up going and fighting them, where one of the spores finds its way into Dinah, and she becomes, if you had to guess what kind of animal she becomes, Pete, what would you guess? If you had a black bird, not quite a canary, but not quite a raven, you'd be correct. Would you also take a guess that she's still wearing the fishnets in the beast form? Because she is.
I was trying to think of something funny that was totally so far removed from being a canary that I don't know, like I don't know. I feel like we've already had so many people transform into animals. All the good ones have been taken.
You know, but she ends up. I like to think that these Garo stars they're kind of like a personality test. So what they turn into kind of reveals something about them. So Nightwing turning into a fox, that I don't know what that says about him, but you know, I'm sure there's something. I'm sure psychologists could put something together. But yeah, so not only is she in a bird form, but she still has the canary cry. So of course she starts going nuts, and Red Canary has to try to get her under control, which she eventually does by, you know, making a stand against her, which makes the big canary creature go off on her own, because, you know, she's not a threat or anything. And Red Canary, you know, takes a deep breath and is like, okay, well, we have to fix this. The art here by Roger Cruz is fantastic, which I'm trying to remember how we know Roger Cruz. Was it Flash or was it Batgirls? But I remember that name being pretty prominent in books we were talking about. Actually, I could probably click on his name and look, in case it doesn't jog Pete's memory. But I definitely remember him doing Flash books. Robin. It was Robin.
It was Robin, yeah. I was going to say, his name definitely was popping up consistently for a while.
And he's going to be doing Outsiders. He's doing Outsiders 4, 5, and 6 coming up.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's cool.
That's fine.
But yeah, so the art here, it's really good. The beasts look pretty good. I mean, her half canary with fishnets on, you know, it kind of looks goofy, but I feel like that's the point. The third story is called The Jungle Society of America, and it's by Robert Venditti and Gavin Guidry, and it's Emmy and Stargirl and Huntress from the Justice Society book, taking on Judy, who's gotten a spore and has turned into an alligator, and Alan Scott, who's become a frog. In so the frog on Alan is kind of funny. The ring's on the tongue, right? Which ends up having payoff later. So
wait on, when you say it's on the tongue, is it like around the tongue, or is it like a tongue piercing where he's got like a?
It's around the tongue, like it's fitting on his finger, but he has it out in thing. It's not on his hand anymore. And so the you know, these members of the JSA show up. Both Huntress and Emmy take out 2 of the spores, so they don't get Stargirl. But then the Judy Gator attacks, and the Cosmic Rod starts going nuts. So they're like, you know, still remember, these are still our friends, but it's also 2 of the most powerful members of the JSA. At a certain point, I'm trying to remember who it was. Oh, it's Huntress. It says if you can get Judy on her back, rub her belly, right? Which is a fun thing about alligators and crocodilians. And if you get them on their back and rub the belly, it puts them into a trance state. And so Emmy's able to do that. She wrestles her down to the ground, and Emmy asks Huntress how she's able to, why would you know that? To which Huntress responds, "Well, I have some interesting parents, right?" And inferring Batman and Catwoman, which leaves Alan now, who whips his tongue like a whip around Stargirl and starts to pull her into his gullet. They fire arrows at him, but the green energies around him it knocks the arrows off. And while Stargirl's in his gullet, she ends up firing the cosmic radiation from the Star Rod, or from the cosmic staff, and it essentially makes him throw her up, and she has the ring in her hand. So he now just becomes a frog person. He's no longer a Green Lantern frog. And Huntress asks Stargirl how she knows this, and she goes, it's from school. And then they laugh and say that they're sending him to the Star City Zoo. So that's Venditti having a lot of fun with the JSA. I like we got Emmy in here, and it felt natural. It didn't feel like she was wedged in with the JSA because she has been palling around with Stargirl. And it was nice to see those characters pop up here. And I'm wondering if they're bringing Stargirl to Star City also, because it works. Like, she's, as far as I remember, it's Nebraska with her, right? That's her hometown. She doesn't really have anything to do with Star City or even Opal City.
Because that was at least when Johns did the whole like mini-series and stuff, it was all about her moving to that small town in Nebraska.
Right. So I think it was inspired to get Stargirl into the Star City thing. And now it ends with the final, which circles back around to, it's called Like Sun, playing off the title of the first, by Ted Brandt and Rose Stein, or it just has a Brandt and Stein, a story and art. And this is the back half of that story where now it's mainly focused on Connor, whereas the first one was focused on Ollie. He takes out these creatures and realizes that he kind of abandoned his dad, which he starts reminiscing about how his dad abandoned him, which I get. It's a big feeling for Connor Hawke, but I feel like every time he gets brought up, this is the solo story piece that we get with him. And he's looking for how to deal with this, and he remembers that Robin had made him some sonic adaptation earbuds, or earplugs. And I guess this was in the DC Pride special, so it's nice that one of those stories is coming back around, and he ends up putting these beacons on the arrows, and he fires them, and it draws the Beast People away, where he's finally able to get to his dad, and Ollie's able to free himself with his own arrows, and comments that he's proud of his son, that he came back for him when he told him to leave him, so and that he even made his own trick arrows to do it, and it ends with them having a hug, and Ollie actually apologizing, and he's like, I know I don't have to, but I feel like this is what you need to hear. And they end up going to an empty tank that's in the aquarium and rounding up all of the creatures with with this specialized stuff that's in the tank. Or it's water, but they end up having this arrow that has a polymer in it. And when they hit the polymer hits the water, it turns it into like this gel that's able to hold them in place. So they end up putting them in this tank, in this gel, and decide that when this is all over, they're going to go have a meaningful talk. So it's a nice closure moment for Connor. So it gets a story point out, but as a whole for the tie-ins, and right, these are kind of like, especially the Red Canary story, it's not much going on here. At least with the Ollie and Connor story, it seems like there's some stuff moving forward with the characters. But yeah, it's just another one of these tie-ins. It's kind of hard to say that it's good because it's fine, but yeah, that art in the Red Canary story by Cruz is a real high point. So I'll give this a 5.5.
That's gushing praise.
Sure.
All right. Well, Detective Comics 1081 Ram V writing with Ricardo Federici and Stefano Raffaele on the art. So yeah, very interesting. This actually, I was surprised there was a backup when I got to it, and the reason why I was surprised was because they did a thing here where when it switched to the B plot and it switched artist, it actually said Huntress in and then gave it a title, as if it almost was a backup. It's just that it was interspersed throughout the issue, and I thought, oh, that's what they're doing. This is an interesting way of doing it. But then obviously I got to the end and there was still a backup, and I went, oh, okay, no, they gave the subplot a title for some reason, which is just it's a very different way of doing it. It kind of worked though.
Yeah, I liked it because it was the stuff that was going on back in Gotham while Bruce is on this soul search.
Yeah, he's on like a vision quest.
A vision quest. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, so I do like that it does that because it is like the B plot does have to do with Bruce, but not really. So I'm glad that they did the question stuff in its own art style, you know, and showing the impact that Batman and lack of Batman has had on the city while he's, you know, going through this, you know, series of hallucinations. So
yeah, the Batman stuff where he's in the desert that Talia's taking him to is the Federici art, and it gets into all this stuff where he's got two demons inside him. He's got the will for the asthma trying to take over, and he's got the Barbatos Bat Demon sort of try to keep him alive. And as I've said before, I always like to think of Barbatos less as an actual thing and more of just a representation of his, you know, like so, spirit.
There's two demons always fighting inside of me, but it's essentially coffee and Taco Bell. But right now they're at a stalemate and they get along. So, you know, Bruce can't say the same.
So, yeah, Talia leaves him, gives him some tea before she goes. But he basically has to do this journey through the desert where by the time he gets to the other side, one of the demons will have won. And obviously, presumably, the Bat's going to win, unless the story's going to take a weird turn afterwards, which we're not expecting. But that's what we would think. As
I was reading this, I was like, wow, this is very similar to that story that Talia told Damian way back when this arc started.
Oh, yeah. Like, they set this up. They talked about this desert way back in that flashback story. Yeah.
So, I'm liking all of this, and you know, Bruce going through this realm where Dr. Hurt's talking to him, which is like, okay, that's different. So, like, how did Hurt get in here?
Well, if you think he's actually there, I think
that's what I'm saying. This is a piece of Bruce, right? That's active. That's like, not that it's a third demon necessarily, but it is a representation of something in Bruce, and I do like that Ram V explores that as well.
Yeah. You know, like all of this stuff is very, obviously it leads to a lot of great art where you see the wolf, where you see Barbatos, and this idea that Bruce is going through all this. And meanwhile, in Gotham, we have Renee Montoya as the Question. Basically, she's investigating a couple of things, particularly the cop who killed the other cop, obviously back at, you know, about an arc or two ago. She's investigating that, and she's looking into the perpetrator's mother, and eventually discovers that the perpetrator actually has killed himself. She finds him in a storage locker or something. Yeah,
a storage unit where we saw Shabad tell him to go kill himself after he killed the partner.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You know, so we see where that goes.
But it's interesting because Montoya, as she narrates this, and she's talking about like looking for things, she sometimes sort of like theorizes what the city is thinking. So we get kind of like, it's not really the city narrating, but it's like Montoya interpreting what the city might be narrating. And the city's talking about forgetting that, you know, it had something, it had a symbol in the sky, and now it's gone. And Montoya's talking about how, you know, I'm not quite Batman, but like I'm all they've got right now, so I'm going to do my best, kind of thing. And you know, you still see a criminal run away. Someone tries to mug the cop's mother and gets scared and runs into the night because they think Batman's going to show up, but he's not there.
Yeah, and it's this thing where they're almost operating off of like their lizard brain, right? Is that the Batman is so entrenched into the Gotham that was, that even though he's not around and they're starting to forget him, there's something deep in them that is telling these perpetrators to run. And Ram V just has such a skill at putting that out there. You know, this whole idea of almost like, it's not even a shadow, but it's almost an echo of Batman. You know, and it's not going away without a fight.
It's interesting because you see like people at their windows looking up, like hoping to see the signal. And this is right when she's doing the thing where she's like narrating as if the city's narrating and saying, "Oh, there's something missing. People are looking up for hope, but it's not there." So it really does sell this idea of what's missing in Gotham if Batman isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff's really good. And then obviously when you go back to Batman and he's doing all this stuff where he's finding this really weird, creepy tree made up of people. And there's this mysterious character who happens to be there who kind of gives him some exposition. It's all really interesting. It tells Batman he has to find himself and all the rest of it. You got Batman draping his cape across his like mouth, like he's well, like he's in the desert, I guess. But you know, it makes me think of Lawrence of Arabia. You know, putting the scarf over your face because of the elements, kind of thing.
So this guy just isn't a guy. This is the hero from the story that Talia told Damian.
Oh, I did not remember that.
Yeah. Well, so that issue made a huge imprint on me. It was one of my favorite issues of Ram V's run. This is what it was doing with the mythology and stories and all this other stuff. It was very on brand for Ram V. So the fact that this is coming back around and that, you know...
Oh, yeah. He is playing the long game, for sure. Yeah. He always was.
So you remember in that parable that she tells him, the story, is that Farhad went across the desert to save his lost love. But by the time he gets to her, she has died, and it's almost for nothing. So the fact that he's here talking to Farhad and where Talia brought him, right, to this desert when he gets back, it's very clear that Batman's love is Gotham, right? And now the stakes are there that, you know, he's going to finish out the story, and when he gets back to Gotham, it's going to be dead. It's not going to be his Gotham, you know? And so just for Ram V to tell that story through this vision quest, you know, to Batman potentially returning to a Gotham that's not his, it you know, and he's going to have to show them the fear again. It made me very excited to see where this is going.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, though, because he does say to him that the Batman is dead, but the myth may never die as long as there's people who are refusing to forget. And that ties in nicely to what the B-plot in this issue is. It's Montoya and some people in the city looking up for the signal and trying to remember. Now, yeah, they might like forget. By the time Batman gets back, maybe he does have to sort of take it back again. But it's it's very much this kind of hero's journey kind of thing of like being broken down as much as he ever has been, only for him to have to build himself back up. That's kind of what we're doing here. But all this art, the coloring's very good. It plays with the idea of the orange glow of the fire, but then when he's back walking away from the fire again, it's all blue and stuff. Just some gorgeous artwork here. The page where he's walking across the top of the sand dunes, and then it kind of forms into the city, and that kind of leads to our cliffhanger, which is that in his vision quest here, Batman has stumbled upon a version of Gotham City that Batman has saved. And we see like the Court of Owls. Well, actually, I don't know if they are the Court of Owls.
I don't know, but they're wearing very Court of Owls-esque masks.
Yeah, right? But I'm doubting it now, though, because it's so Dr. Hart's being carried on like a throne by all these goons. And I thought they were Court of Owls when I read this, but now that I'm looking at it again, and because they're seemingly working for Dr. Hart, and again, this isn't a real place, this is all just, you know, Batman's vision quest, but I'm now looking at the masks again, and I'm thinking, you know what, they're not actually quite the Court of Owls. I think they're actually just his people, technically. Yeah,
that could be that too. They kind of remind me of the Dollatrons from Professor Pig too. You know, the mannequin faces kind of. But yeah, no, I was getting Court of Owl vibes too when I first read this, and then you look closer, and then again, that can't be by accident. You know, I feel like, you know.
I mean, probably not. I mean, the Court of Owls are so like tied to the city as well, and in this final panel at the bottom of the page is like a Batman demon who, you know, so this version of the city that's being saved, it's not like someone who looks like Batman who's doing it. It's literally a bat demon, if not Barbatos himself.
Exactly.
So, you know, like, I think this idea of him, like sometimes these Vision Quest type stories, if they're not done well, I think it's very, very easy for them to feel kind of like they're up their own ass.
Yep.
So far, I'm not feeling that with this. Partly because the art is gorgeous. Partly because it's playing on themes that we've been working with this run for a long time. Even though I didn't remember this character from that issue, I remembered that issue in the desert and the parable being told. So I still got this sense of it coming back round, even without some of the details being in my memory still. So I think that stuff's all great. Obviously, the art change here is used effectively, where it is a very, very different setting. And not even just a different setting, but like a different state of mind. Like the Batman stuff, like we say, it's Vision Quest. It's all kind of like open to interpretation. All of it's in his head. It's very much a almost mystical thing. But Gotham, on the other hand, that's literally the reality of what's happening there. So this is one of the most sort of justified art differences between two plot lines that I've seen in a comic. So
for sure,
yeah, that stuff's all very good. But
also want to see that Talia, when she sets Bruce off, right, with the people in the desert and gives him the tea, gives her proper name, which is Talia. So of course I googled what that means, and
of course you did.
Yeah, right. So for Ra's al Ghul, that translates to the demon's head, right? Talia translates to Tears of the Gods. So like Ra's has a thing with names. Like this dude knows. He knows how to make things sound impressive. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well, given that there's these demons fighting in Bruce, right? But the lady that brought in there is named after Tears of the Gods, which goes into that story of the gods sending Farhad on that quest to get his lost love. And so it just, again, it's Ram V tying everything back around. It's almost like a movement in a song, right? And yeah, dude, he's just killing every time. This is one of my favorite Batman stories in a long time.
Yeah, I would even mention there is actually a page of Batman fighting the wolf demon, the Asmer, and he knows it'll come back, but he does seemingly win for now, even though it's weakened him greatly. And this is before he finds the tree and he has all the deep conversations about the city and all the other stuff that's going on. So, yeah, all very great stuff. This is the sort of thing that when you read this run from start to finish in collected form, this stuff is just going to sing even better, I think.
Yeah, it's going to feel so fulfilling,
Yep. So, main story's great. The backup, which I did read, is Dan Waters. It's basically this idea that there's a support group all talking. And honestly, it's quite clear from the start, I think, to the readers what's going on. But over the course of the backup, all the people at this support group realize they're all talking about the same person. The same person has ruined all of their lives, and that is Dr. Hurt. It starts off with this wife who finds out that the marriage was a sham, and that Dr. Hurt had been lying to her and just disappeared one day. After she couldn't get pregnant for the third time, he wanted a child. And then the second guy, this was the one that really stuck out to me, is someone who wanted to be a vigilante / superhero like one of the Bat characters, so wanted training, and this mysterious person decided to train them. It turns out this was Dr. Hurt, of course, and this all boiled up to the night he gets his costume on. Dr. Hurt hands him a grappling hook, but there's no actual rope on the hook. There's no rope.
Yeah.
So the guy just falls, not to his death. We see him with the big back brace on and like the head
and the halo.
Yeah. He's like completely been broken and is never going to live a normal life. That one especially felt very dark to me.
Yeah. Well, because if you remember your Dr. Hurt story from R.I.P. was he was trying to build a better Batman. So the idea, like here, that he gave this man a grapple gun with no rope. Like, was that his idea of creating trauma, or what? Like, I don't know what that part of making him into his own Batman was, or is this just to poison the city?
I mean, I didn't really have an idea of why he did it, but to me, it almost felt like something the Joker would do. It felt like a sick joke, like a really dark, sick joke. But yeah, so, and then the last person was someone who Dr. Hurt, like, did an exorcism to, but it was someone who wasn't possessed, so it was actually it was the person's actual personality or soul, or whatever you want to call it, that got taken out with the exorcism. So now the person that was left afterwards was someone with no memory, and everything had been taken from him. But the ending revelation is that Dr. Hurt was the same person. It was him in all of these stories. So this is to be continued. So we'll see where this goes from here. I mean, this was a very intriguing story. Maybe as the backup goes on into part 2 or 3 or whatever, we'll get a sense of why he was doing all of these things specifically. And
there was a fourth person too that said they're not ready to talk about it yet.
Yes, so presumably we'll get more with them as well.
We'll get more of that, and yeah, this almost felt like the darkest version of the Doom Patrol I've ever seen. You know, because it's all these people that had accidents around Dr. Hurt. You know, and it's led them to this place. So, but yeah, crazy time. I really like the art here. It's got this. It's Hayden Sherman. But there's this again, not quite pulpy, but there's a very like heavy lines and how it works with the coloring and the layouts and all of that. Just everything blends together. It's almost like a not pulpy, but almost like pop art kind of style. And I think it does a really good job at telling the story here.
Yeah, I thought the art worked quite well too. It's sort of like there's this fine line almost between the type of art like this that I don't like versus what I do, and this is on the side that I do. But when I look at this, I can sort of compare it almost to a very flat style of art that I don't like, and say I'm not even sure what I can describe what this does that the alternative doesn't, that makes it work for me. Maybe it's just enough detail versus whatever, but it's a very flat style, you know, in terms of the colors. If you look at the faces and stuff. But anyway, the end of the story, other than them realizing that they're all there because of Dr. Hart, is that one of them's like, hey, do we have it? What do we have it in us to kill this prick? Do we want revenge? Are we going to go and try and kill him? Although specifically calls him the devil. So
right.
It really sets up Dr. Hurt as this big bad that's done all these horrible things to all these people. So it was very effective in that.
For sure.
Yeah. No. Interesting. Interesting to see how this ties in. I mean, obviously I know Dr. Hurt's coming up in the main story right now, but he's not really there.
No.
So it's
but we did get teases from Ram V in that story that he drew about Hurt being in play.
We did, yeah.
You know.
So we'll see. But that is Detective Comics. Matt, what are you giving the issue?
Hold on to your butts. This is a 9.5.
Whoa! Okay, that's very high.
I really enjoyed this issue.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very pretty. The backup's solid as well. I don't think I'm going to go as high as you, though. I think I'm going to go with a nice 8.5 for me. But it is very, very good. So, cool. All right, The Flash, issue 5, legacy number 805. This is Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato Jr. I feel like this book is very good at throwing too many details at me, so that there's always at least a few things that I'm not entirely... Like, I get it in the moment when I'm reading it, but if I try and describe them now in hindsight, I'm going to struggle.
It's like a dream, where you're like, did I read that? Did that come to me in a... It's very weird that way.
The main focus of this... So the main character of this issue is Jay, right? Wally's son.
Yep.
And it's him in school, and it's exploring his powers, which introduces... I'm not sure if this is entirely new, but he kind of like splits up into little like blood men.
Yeah, they meet men.
Well, it was making me think of all things, there's a really crappy vampire movie from the early 90s called Subspecies, where the vampire's blood makes these little blood goblins that can do stuff for him.
Is that where Radu comes from?
That's where Radu comes from, yeah.
Gotcha, all right.
Radu's the one who has the blood.
Thanks to Tim, I am aware of Radu. So thank you, bud.
Yeah, so basically Jay, one of his powers is that he can sort of like teleport to another speedster, and that happens throughout this issue. We see him sort of go towards Wally, and Wally's helping Mr. Terrific and co with the science experiment. We see him go to some of the others and bounce back, and we get sort of his thoughts. But the main thing is that he is interacting with this other character who knows a lot about his powers. And I'm just trying to get to the page with his name. Here we go. Inspector Pilgrim, who is a science detective, and he's got this big bowl hat is what I'm going to. It's like he's been a big bowl on his head.
You can't even see it. You can't see him. It looks like a lampshade almost.
Which I think is intentional. I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to turn out to be someone that we know who isn't just called Pink Pilgrim. Although maybe there's a hint in the name. I'm not sure. I'm not recognizing something.
So I thought the only Pilgrim that comes to mind is I could have sworn there was a Flash character with the last name Pilgrim. But then I remembered, I think that was the Pilgrim that I remember is from the Bendis book Powers, which has nothing to do with Flash.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking literally it'd be someone else with that same name. I was thinking it's just like a hint, in terms of like what the word means or something like that.
Right.
But regardless, it's he clearly knows stuff from the future, right? As he's talking to Jay. But the big thing with Jay here is kind of him. It's kind of like a soul searching issue for Jay, where he's looking at all the other speedsters. He's seeing how special his sister is. He's seeing how special Barry and Wally are, and even talking about how he's not really jealous of his new baby sister.
Of Wade.
Or brother, I should say.
Yeah.
But he's feeling a little alienated because he's now the middle kid. Well, they're twins, so they're not really middle, but you know what I mean.
But he does have middle child syndrome because he's feeling like he doesn't know what his place is in the family, right? Because he doesn't have Speed Force powers per se, like Irie does.
Yeah.
And
that's something he talks about a lot in the issue, is that he's connected to the Speed Force, but in a way that's different from everyone else. He can't just run through it, but as Inspector Pilgrim tells him, no, you don't attach to the Speed Force in a linear fashion like everyone else does. You kind of manipulate it. In fact, the aliens, the light aliens that we see again when the science project goes klabooey, they call him a shaper. Oh, there's a shaper here, which is kind of suggesting that he can manipulate reality in a way that's very important, and maybe that's going to be a big deal. In fact,
or the Speed Force in of itself.
I say maybe. Obviously, it's going to be a big deal in this run because Spurrier is seeding it here, so obviously it is. But it feels like they're setting something big up for Jay here, which is interesting. But the real big thing about this issue though is him thinking about his place, and the issue's called Top Priority. And it's a phrase that's thrown around a little bit. Wally says it to Bart when he's worried about Max and him being trapped in this other dimension. And then when Jay talks to Wally and Wally tries to reassure him, he calls him his top priority, and then his narration says, yeah, me and everyone else. And it's kind of getting to the heart that he doesn't feel like he is like top priority, right? That's the point, is he doesn't feel like it's his dad's sole concern. So it all builds up at the end to him telling his dad that he doesn't want to be a superhero, right? Yeah. Now, admittedly, he's young enough. He can change his mind. But it does feel... It's definitely played like it hits Wally hard when he says this to him. Mm-hmm. And it's not even like there's any dialogue. It's just the art. The art does a great job here where Wally's face is kind of in shadow. And it looks like he's... I wouldn't say disappointed, but certainly... No.
He's solemn for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I like the opposite of that. It's next to it, but it's Inspector Pilgrim and Jay back on the school bench, and Jay's clearly crying, and Pilgrim's looking so uncomfortable. Is
it possible this is just older Jay?
Yeah, maybe
because he knows a lot about Jay. He keeps hinting at it. So
and apparently, so I looked up this Inspector Pilgrim, and on the wiki article, and granted, wikis can be whatever. They say that the first actual appearance is him as the inspector in issue 1 of this run. So,
okay.
So this is something that's been seeded, which is nice.
Interesting. Because I mean, obviously, I've glossed over some of the big actiony moments, like I said, the science experiment that Wally's doing with Mr. Terrific and the scientists. The what they call the stillness, that's what they're called. The sort of the different colored alien, and I say alien, interdimensional aliens specifically, show up, and they call Jay a shaper, like I said, but they also like start reacting when they see him. They kind of make him split up into those little blood men that we were talking about. And Wally basically is about to go supernova with the Speed Force. Like he's vibrating, he's collecting Speed Force energy. It's like he's about to shatter the world, and that's something Jay brings up later, is that Wally would have went supernova to get him back. And it's only because Jay reformed and said, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. Like, it's just a thing I can do.
Yeah. But I do like that because that does drive point the home with him. Is like, even though he didn't want to be a hero and stuff, his dad's operating from a spot of, his kids, his family do mean the world to him, and that extends to the Flash family. And I think Jay is Spurrier uses Jay as that, anchor point here. And I figure that's how he's going to be, because Jay he can touch the Speed Force from different angles, right, than what we're used to. And I feel like him being representative of that, not having the Speed Force powers, being so different, not wanting to follow in the family footsteps, I figured that's going to be Wally's kind of reminder of why he does all of this. And I mean, I might just be, taking more from the story, but that's what I got out of the story at the end, where he would have shattered the world for me. And it was just a very nice sentiment in this very kind of weird science fiction-y superhero book.
It's interesting because this book as a whole has definitely had, you used the word solemn earlier, and I think solemn kind of describes the tone of this Flash run so far, and I kind of like it because it's different from what Flash usually feels like. So I've been kind of digging that. I'm also loving that it is giving more time to the kids. Like, this was a very Jay-focused issue, obviously. Reis had a bit of focus before, and I expect that both kids are going to get a lot of focus as time goes on, particularly the relationship with Wally. The run so far, its biggest sin is that it's got all this sciencey stuff going on. That it does feel like it hits you with it so quickly and so fast at points that, like, I don't remember the exact context the first time the stillness showed up, because there was so many things being thrown at me in issue 1 and 2 that I feel like I have to go back and read it again.
There were Speed Force gorillas and someone running around, and then they're there, and I was like, this is a lot to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but I'm really loving the art. I think the moodiness of it, and like you say, the reactions on the faces are doing a lot of heavy lifting. That page where Wally is going supernova and collecting Speed Force energy looks gorgeous. There's a lot of great pages like that. It's not up there with some of the best artists or some of my favorite artists, just because it's not 100% consistent. But when it's on, it's really on, and the overall aesthetic is very, very nice. So really appreciated that. There's a whole scene with Grodd that we should probably mention a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm
getting there.
I thought you were going to jump in, but
no, I was trying to cover for you, but I had to find the page.
Okay, so it's the first time Jay jumps. Pretty much, he jumps. Well, second time I should say. He jumps to basically Wally is trying to talk to Grodd and get some information about what the other gorillas were doing, because there's been like an uprising. It gets in a little bit to like what Grodd and some of the other apes' beliefs are. Like they've got what was the name of the thing?
He says here because he attacks Wally.
I've got the word. It's the Miengu. The Miengu prophesied that I would break my enemy's heart before devouring it, and he kind of, because he basically Grodd senses that Jay's there on the other side of the glass before Wally knows he's there, and starts making these sort of vague sort of threats about him.
Yep, and so he's, the slaughter of the sun would be apt, and to where Jay starts messing with all these dials in this room, not dials, but like instruments, and that what does this end up doing? Because that ends up helping them, get Grodd back under control, kind of buying time.
Yeah, what he does is. Well, what he does is he turns on the microphone. He's not just playing with random things.
That's what he does.
Yeah. He turns on the microphone and calls through and asks Grodd why he does what he does. And Grodd basically calms down and says, in all these years of fighting the Flash and other heroes, no one's ever actually just asked me that. And then he goes in to explain it a little bit.
And that's what I wanted to get to. That's what the part I was getting to that got me distracted was he calls himself by his real name, which I don't think I've ever heard Grodd refer to himself as that, as Mwenye. He's the father of the professor. He's a silverback. So basically it runs a parallel with Wally, that why Wally does everything he does is for his family. In this other twisted way, so does Grodd. right? He's trying to do what's best for his troop.
Yeah, but Grodd describes it though as being a slave to his family, where it's this constant burden to actually do everything for them and be the best for them. And I think that ties into what Wally's story is, because the whole thing we had the last couple of issues was that Wally was escaping reality and going to that flash garden where he was effectively just ignoring the world and like getting away from it, almost like a coping mechanism, an unhealthy one at that, because it seems like he was sort of getting lost in it until someone snapped him out of it. So there's definitely some parallel. I mean, I think thematically this conversation with Grodd does have a lot to lend to the main story with Wally. So yeah. So that seemed like a scene that we should have talk about a bit before we wrap up, because I feel like a big deal. So yeah. I mean, it's the sort of thing where there's these rough edges to this run constantly, but it's always doing something interesting, and I'm always kind of intrigued by what it is doing. So
yeah, I liked what Spurrier does here with Jane, and it doesn't make him feel like so much like an anomaly, right? Because I always felt like Irie getting all the speed powers, but he could like get strong, you know. It always felt weird, so I do appreciate that Spurrier found a way to tie him back to the Speed Force, and he interacts with it differently than the rest of the family, you know. And that's kind of what we always had with it, but that he goes around and he can alter it, whereas they're much more passive. He's much more, you know, what's the opposite of passive? Is active? I guess it'd be active, right? He's much more active in the Speed Force than they are, and what that means for him and his dad's relationship is almost like at the end there, he feels like there's almost too much responsibility in what he has and what he does to be a superhero, right? So going back and talking through this and looking at it from that angle is he doesn't want to be a superhero. He wants to be something more, right? Maybe that's a keeper of the Speed Force. Maybe that's, you know, maybe that's a time traveling hero called Inspector Pilgrim, you know, not like his dad. So it definitely gives a different light to that entire conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's got like anything set in mind about what he wants to be, but I think it's just this realization that he can't just be that, you know, whether that's because he wants to be more normal or something else entirely. I think there's I forgot, I was going to say something there.
Gotcha.
And I forgot
about him. You said you think there's something more there.
That's a way. Oh well. If it's important, it'll come back next issue.
It went away into the Speed Force itself.
It'll come back next issue if it's important. Yeah. So you know, we'll see where it goes, but it's definitely an interesting run so far, if nothing else. Like it's I've always been intrigued when I'm reading it, even if it's not always the smoothest reading experience, because sometimes it's a bit clunky with its dialogue. You know.
I will say that this one wasn't as clunky as some of the others have been. Like, this one didn't take me as long to read as some of the other ones have.
I don't think the last one was either. I think these last two were easier to read than the first three. Yeah.
I would agree there. Because I think we said the same thing, because the last one was Jesse and Irie, right? Going around the Flash Girls.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I really enjoyed that one. I think we said the same thing, that was a lot easier to digest because he wasn't throwing a million things at us. Here, though, Spurrier does throw a bunch of stuff, but I feel like he articulates it well enough, and the art, the Deodato, it works in balance enough that even though it's a lot of things, it doesn't feel like a lot. So but yeah, this is definitely a Flash run I won't forget. Now, will I remember the ins and outs exactly? Probably not. But for what he's doing and adding kind of these layers to the character, I definitely won't forget it.
Yeah. So, what are you giving the Flash issue 5?
I'm going to give it 7.5.
Yeah, I think I'm happy enough to give it the 8. Even with some faults, like I think the run's growing on me, and hopefully it can keep nudging. You know, it's the sort of thing where I hope by the time it's done, I'll look back at it all and go, you know what, that was kind of special and different, and it'll read even better in a second time when I've already got kind of a feel for it kind of thing. So, all right, Green Arrow issue 8, legacy number 341, by my count. This is Joshua Williamson writing with Phil Hester on the art. Take it away, Matt.
So Hester definitely bringing that Green Arrow from the 90s vibe here. So that was real nice. But here it opens up with Connor in a sling and Oliver full of bullet holes from Onomatopoeia. And we're led to believe that Onomatopoeia got the drop on them and killed Ollie, and now Connor is going to swear vengeance upon his dad. So he goes around the city looking for who hired him. And this is where Hester really, really excels, is the layouts and the action sequences, because the main one as Connor's looking is this black and white and green are the main colors done in like negative space. So like it's making sound waves. It's almost like Onomatopoeia's mask, right? And like it shows him fighting in this bar, but then there's this black strip in the middle where he's escaping into, like an airport. And it's just done with negative space and white. And then more of an action sequence as he's, coming into all these contacts, which leads him to Onomatopoeia getting onto this yacht where Brick is waiting, right? And Onomatopoeia gets there, and I just like how quirky of a villain Onomatopoeia is, because he only talks in those sounds, right? So when Brick is celebrating, he's got a bottle of champagne, he pops it to where, Onomatopoeia has to say the pop. And Brick makes fun of him kind of for this, and Onomatopoeia shows Brick the corpse photos of Ollie as they're going as they're heading out on the boat. They hear this revving of an engine, which of course Onomatopoeia copies as well, and it leads to Connor on a smaller speedboat ramming at full speed into Brick. He goes to fight Brick. Brick runs. He fights Onomatopoeia, where now Connor gets shot, and there's just a loud bang. The police end up on this yacht. Brick ends up taking a helicopter. They drop down as the police are surrounding. He gets up on the ladder where a green arrow slices through the rope ladder, and Onomatopoeia is standing there with a bow and arrow, mask up, and it's in fact Ollie, who says that he can finally take this mask off because it was making his beard itch. So this was all just a ruse to find out who had a hit out on Ollie, is that him and Connor, even though he got the drop, they defeated Onomatopoeia super easy. They took his stuff and led on this goose chase to figure out that it was Brick. Brick drops on him. He's like, "Hey, you can't leave me out on this boat. It's sinking. I don't swim very well, being that he's made of brick." And then he hears that one of his other kids, his redheaded step kid, is running around with his ex, looking for her. Says, "Your girl left with his ex the last time I saw him, or with his ex." And he goes, "What are you talking about? He's not out in hiding. He works for Waller now," and it shows Arsenal or Red Arrow, whatever we're calling him at this point. It's Arsenal, right? It's just Roy. But I believe Emmy's using Red Arrow now, so...
God, I can't keep track of all the Red Arrow, Arsenal characters and what names they're using right now.
He's the worst one, right? Emmy's the true Red Arrow at this point, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it shows him launching arrows at these military dudes, and it just teases the next issue, the assault on the Hall of Justice. So, seems like Roy is working for Waller in some way. Who knows at this point? This is the most coherent. This kind of, ever since I got out of the time traveling stuff, this book's hasn't been a chore to read. Like, I was feeling something was off when they kill Ollie and then they kill Connor, and I was like, there's no way any of this is true. And for it to end up being like this undercover sting thing, I'm like, I mean, I guess that's fine. But it's leading to a bigger story with Waller and Arsenal and all of those threads that Williamson's had dangling. So at least it's moving the story forward that way. Hester's art's really good. The action sequences are fantastic. His Brick looks unlike any other character or any other rendition of Brick that I've seen, which is nice. But it helps that Hester's style is really heavy and squarey, and so is Brick. So it kind of works together. And even all the angles on Ollie and stuff, when he pulls off the mask and his beard, comes down to the point, it's all just very recognizable as Hester. So, I kind of enjoyed this. And I was on the fence, like, no one else is reading this. Connor's not on the show as much, and Pete's definitely not. I think I'm stuck reading this for now. I think I've fallen into that trap because I'm invested in where this goes. So yeah. So if I'm rating it, I'll give this a solid 7.
All right. Okay. Well, The Penguin, issue 6, Tom King writing with Stevan Subic, or I don't know how you say his name, on the art. So, New York, obviously we wrapped up the collecting of everyone. And then this takes an interesting turn where this, at least for one issue, goes into the past. This goes into kind of the start, or at least the main part of how Penguin became the crime boss Penguin, and does an interesting thing where it's very, very tied to Batman, and how Batman kind of put him in the position that we all think of him as being in the modern comics, which is the guy running the Iceberg Lounge and all that. Very, very interesting. So, what did you make of this?
So I like the story. I like what it did. I don't necessarily. So my idea of Penguin is he's part of the older families of Gotham. He's that old money. So King coming in and making him more of a self-made guy, I think that redefines Oswald as a character. I think that it's a positive. Having him tied so much to Batman, I don't know if I like, and maybe that'll pay off down the line.
I think that just depends where it goes, like what he's got planned with that, because I don't dislike any of the particular things in this issue by any means. I think the whole idea that Falcone was working, or sorry, Penguin was working for Falcone, had been promoted to serving drinks, but had been working as a cleaner at Falcone's place, which is the Iceberg Lounge, I might add.
Which they just keep calling the lounge, right? So it ties them to it.
For quite some time, and I mean, Penguin coming up from nothing, certainly not new. Like, obviously, this whole he comes from old money in Gotham has been... That's actually more of the more modern take on Penguin,
right?
I think, whereas this is maybe going back to something closer to what it was before, but certainly with its own spin on it. But yeah, so I think what was really neat about the opening scene is that Penguin's like, behind the bar serving this drink, and we're hearing this narration, and I kind of liked that. I couldn't tell for a while. I thought it was because of the format. Sorry,
are you talking about the narration?
Yeah, I'm talking about the narration.
Yeah.
So I thought, because the format of the book has been always that someone else has been narrating, I still kind of assumed that was the case.
Yep.
But the narration here in the opening page, which does turn out to be from Falcone, it could have been Penguin for so long that it was almost making me like question, wait, are we switching to doing Penguin narration now that we're in a New York? Are we dropping that? And that's kind of interesting that we are dropping it if we are. We don't. It is actually still someone else in the scene. It's Falcone. But because he's talking as a mob boss, and because he's talking down about other people, it was like, this sounds like it could be Penguin. It wasn't until I started criticizing how Penguin looked that I went, oh, okay, it's Falcone who's talking in the narration. So I thought that was
I did that whole thing where I was like, I don't think it's Penguin, because that would break kind of the what we've been doing. But also, maybe it's the detective, and we're gonna get like a counter story. But then I was like, no, this is not the detective. They can't stop swearing, right? And then when it's revealed that he's stirring the drink, not receiving the drink, and it clicks, I thought that was a really nice reveal.
Yeah. I don't think I never really thought about the detective, because I think I already got that this was like a flashback story. So, you know,
Gotcha.
because the detective obviously is because if at hell, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've already read in the book is like sort of yeah, whatever. Anyway, the point is this very much follows where Penguin was and how he's constantly picked on. He has this. There's this old woman who takes care of some birds on a rooftop, and Penguin goes back there, and we get her narration, and she seems to be obsessed with thinking every man that comes up to the roof wants to kiss her.
Give her the old dirty kisses.
Yeah, dirty kisses is the exact phrase. That's not actually what anyone wants, but it's what she keeps thinking. But she brings up that she saw the Batman, and this gives Penguin an idea of sorts to lure Batman in and talk to him, which he basically, you know, it forms this partnership where Penguin wants to sort of tell him stuff. You know, he wants to get one over on Falcone by feeding him information, and Batman can you know, take out the bad guys and also pay him potentially, which we know he can do because he's Bruce Wayne.
Right.
But they make this deal, and then the middle of the issue is very much Batman's narration talking about how he's using Penguin's intel and how he's even training Penguin to ask better questions or listen for the right kinds of information. And, you know, eventually it leads to him taking down big players in Falcone's operation. We see him as Matches Malone in the bar, keeping an eye on Penguin and making sure that he's doing what he's doing. All of this was entertaining enough. It was fun seeing how all this played out. And I think ultimately when it gets down to like Batman's like, should he trust Penguin or not? Because Penguin does technically lie about a couple of things, but Batman catches them on it, particularly about who the woman is, because he says it's his mother, and Batman's like, no, she's not. And he's like, well, she's like a foster mother, and I kind of call her mum because this reason or that reason. So it's very much this play that Penguin's making to use this new, more colourful character who's in Gotham to sort of take one out on Falcone. In fact, the opening narration for Falcone at the very start of the book is him complaining that after all he's built, some idiot throwing boomerangs, as he calls them, is ruining everything. So this is very much set during Batman Year One. In fact, there's even there's a line from Batman at one point that, some of Falcone's like his brother led some men into Ace Chemicals and one of his goons fell into the vat of acid. And I'm like, okay, so that's just a little...
How this parts into the Tom King Gerads Joker story too. Like,
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
You know, that was pretty cool. I like that. But yeah, and the stuff with Falcone and you know, being so spread thin because of what Oswald's doing and helping Batman. The whole motif of him constantly wanting to serve, right? So like when Bruce is pleading, you know, you gotta let me help the mother figure, and he's like, I'm important, and Bruce is like, you're a bartender, and Oswald goes, no, I'm your bartender. I feel to me that's where the Penguin was born, right? Because that's where he starts to make these moves that are going to eventually end with him owning the Iceberg Lounge.
Well,
right?
I think
he's manipulating Batman.
The thing you're skipping over there is that when Batman says he wants to finally go after Falcone himself, Penguin tries to dodge it, and Batman's like, why are you lying? And he admits that, well, once you've got Falcone, then what am I at that point? Like, I've felt important recently helping you take all these guys out. I don't want this to end. And I think what this issue is doing is that it's really painting this foundation for why Penguin is the way he is, and why he's always so determined to be the smart one, he always lashes out, right? Yeah. Because this book starts with him being belittled, having a glass smashed in his face, and then there's literally a scene of him in the bathroom pulling little bits of glass out of his face, and you can kind of see this is where the anger largely comes from. It's this kind of stuff in his past that's made him the way he is. And And yeah, like he is obviously kind of manipulating Batman, but Batman's obviously getting a lot out of it. But Batman actually gives him the money to get the Iceberg Lounge. He owns the Iceberg Lounge because Bruce Wayne gave him the money. That's actually kind of a big deal.
Yeah, Bruce inadvertently created a criminal empire. You know?
Well, yeah, kinda. It's interesting because it really calls into question the nature of who the Penguin is in Gotham now, in terms of at least of how he started, because it's this idea that the whole idea is that he would still operate the Iceberg Lounge like Falcone did, but only with the purpose that the criminals would come, they would talk, and Batman could still get intel. And obviously somewhere along the line, Penguin just straight up became a kingpin, right? He just straight up became that in that role.
And it stopped being the city. It almost matches Penguin's identity as he goes, right? Because it stops from being the seedy underground watering hole for crooks, and it becomes this big opulent casino, right? So I like thematically where that goes.
Yeah, so it's like he has to make it better than what it was before, because he's better than Falcone. He's going to have it be bigger and flashier and shinier and all that stuff. And at the end of the issue, is Penguin throwing the old woman off the roof, right? Because all issue, I'm like, okay, this book's been nothing but showing us how Penguin can act out violently, and it's been kind of subdued this issue because it's in the past and he's not really had the chance to yet. And then, like the whole idea of her was that this was to give Batman something noble, like in Penguin's like story, to like sort of say, well, he's doing all this to take care of this poor old woman. That's something Batman can get behind, because it's like everything.
He's doing good. He's doing evil, but at the root of it, it's he wants to take care of his mom.
Yeah, like it's if she wasn't a part of the story, it's just him wanting money, and like Batman can't get on board with that necessarily.
And being power hungry, and and
it's about revenge even on Falcone. Yeah, but she was the sob story that made it look like there was something pure at the center of it. And at the end of the story, he's like, "You were important," and she's like, "I'm important." Like, no, I didn't say you are. I said you were important. And then pushes her off the roof. That's the final panel. It's her falling through the sky.
I'm going to be negative for a hot second. I wasn't a big fan of the art in this.
Okay,
that's it's an acquired taste type thing, and it's just not mine. Just the proportions and everything from what we've had on this book before. But this last page is some of the most masterful storytelling that I've seen, where they start off so far apart, and as he is telling her, no, you were important, it ends up with him throwing her off and then her falling through off of the roof. So it's almost like this countdown that you can just follow. And I don't know how much of that was in the script. I don't know how much of that is the artist doing this as well, but it is some, like, it got a dark laugh out of me when he said, no, you were important. Because as you're reading, your eye goes to different colors, and when he pushes her, it's red, and as she's falling, it's all yellow. So when you open the page, when you get to that page, that something bad has happened, but you're not sure what. And then when he drops that on her, it got a chuckle out of me, and then I felt terrible, right? Because all this lady did, despite having whatever mental illness that she had, because she used to be a ballerina, right? She hit hard times, and then she was trying to help out all of these kids that were coming up in Gotham. And her only sin was trusting this guy, and it got her thrown off a roof, she's thrown off the roof by a bird that can't fly. I don't know what else is irony.
If she even does trust him, I don't know.
True.
If she, it almost feels like he's just taking advantage of her condition by showing up, and she doesn't really.
True.
She can't really put up a fight. It's I think the art is very different from before. I think I'm not necessarily a fan of Penguin's face in a lot of it. I do like some of the other characters. I like how Falcone looks in the shadows. I like how Batman looks. Like, there's a lot of it I do really like, and I think what you were getting at with the final page is that even if you're not in love with how he draws Penguin's face, the sequencing in the art, the way it moves from panel to panel is exceptionally good still. So maybe it's not quite to the same taste as the art from before, but it doesn't feel like, this feels very different than all of a sudden we've got like Gilliam March as the artist. This is more like no, this is still a high quality artist. It's just not one that maybe everyone's going to vibe with as much as the previous.
Because that's the thing I like the least about it, but I still really like this issue. You know, it's just, but I could also rationalize that this is him drawing Penguin in as the most grotesque way possible. You know, it's kind of showing his inner self. You know, you can get away with that if you want.
Because Falcone and the other criminals are basically all mocking him for being like so ugly. Like that's kind of what they say as they're talking about him. Sort of thing. No, I think this was a really interesting issue. It's not what I was expecting necessarily after the end of that last arc. I'm actually a little confused as to what the next story is going to be, because I thought, oh, maybe that's just like a one-issue fill-in before we get back to continuing the present-day stuff, just to give the artist like an issue off, and that makes sense. But it does say part 1, like when you on the title page. Yeah. So I'm not sure. It makes me wonder if we're going to actually get like the next stage of Penguin's career, and there's going to be like 4 or 5 issues here going through his rise to modern-day Penguin before the fall, before the whole fake murder thing.
Yeah, so the next issue is by Subic.
I suspect you're going to get a full arc out of him then. Nope,
just the 2, because then issue 8 is back to De La Torre.
Okay, so it is a fill-in there. It's just a 2-part fill-in. Okay. Fair enough.
So, but yeah, so it just looked
I suspect, if I was to guess then, I'd suspect that the next issue will be kind of his rise to being the Kingpin. Now that he's got the lounge.
Yep. To where he was before he, gave it all up, right? When what was it that Batman killed him? That's what set off the.
Well, I don't know if it'll go that far. I could see it just going to the point where Batman realizes that Penguin's not just working for him anymore. That he's where he realizes that Penguin's actually a villain in the city.
No, that could be. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I can see that being.
We're not just gonna speed run his career.
Yeah.
In Gotham. So
but basically, I'd say these 2 issues are like Penguin Year 1, if you want to call them that.
That's about right.
I mean, obviously, I'm looking forward to getting back to him coming back to the city with his squad that he's built, because that was obviously what the entire first arc was building up. I do this as an interesting little 2-parter to throw in, though, because seeing some of his motivations and seeing how he was treated and how determined he is to take over and how he's done it like this, because this feels like a very early version of what we've seen in some of these other issues, right, where he's very unassuming and the others don't realize they're being outplayed, and in this case including Batman even. So whereas that's something the Batman won't fall for again, because once Penguin's tricked him once, Batman ain't going to easily fall for it a second time.
True. But I wonder if that's what's going to play off. Is remember in the first issue we get that flash forward almost of them in the crash bat plane.
Yeah, the very, very start of the
right. And I'm wondering if this plays in, that Bruce remembers. Oh no, I trusted him once before. Like obviously I can't let him die.
I mean, I think it already plays in, just in the sense that we finally got like some of him and Batman interacting, because like up until this issue, that one scene with them in the Batwing was the only time we've seen them together this entire thing. So it was just kind of nice to be reminded of like, oh yeah, this is building up to them being involved in something together again. Yeah. Very curious. So we'll see. If I was to guess, I would say that Penguin is going to offer help to Batman to take someone down, and obviously Batman's going to be skeptical based on this, because I mean, Batman's probably going to figure out who killed the old woman. Yeah,
I mean, there's it's kind of one prime suspect, right? Yeah. They're kind of the only person that would go visit her. It's me. I mean, Oswald made that very clear, right? That he's one of the only people that remembers her. So yeah.
It never even occurred to me, because you said this a little bit ago, but the almost the dark irony of her being pushed off the building by a flightless bird of the Penguin when she was going on earlier about the pigeons not being great flyers.
Right.
It's quite funny.
Yep. King has that way, man. He's got a wit to his writing. I mean, but yeah, it all comes together.
Yeah. So very good. Yeah. Honestly, some of my favorite art might be that page, just like 3 pages in when he's in the bathroom and he's just in silhouette as the drunk guy is just mumbling in his narration about, it's like about this not happening again, and just basically this, like, how cold and calculated Penguin's clearly thinking about things as this guy's just stumbling around. I don't know. It just painted a picture, and I do like the coloring quite a bit as well.
Yeah,
across the
coloring's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
With the way that it goes when, like, Batman shows up in this drab, like
muted
brown
blues and stuff.
Yeah, but everything in the Iceberg Lounge is the dingy yellow, and stuff. And then that, for me, that culminates on the final page, right, where we get the red, and the yellow. So
yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, very good. So, what are you giving Penguin issue 6?
I'm gonna give this a 8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's not the best issue of the book, but I think it's doing some interesting things and really fleshing out this character. And it is kind of funny how it almost crosses over timeline-wise slightly with the other King story that we're going to talk about later. But there you go, Penguin. All right, Amazon's Attack, issue 4. Josie Campbell writing with Vasco Georgiev on the...
Nailed it!
On the art, did I? I wasn't even trying, if I'm honest.
He just reminded me, I think there's a Knights game on that I'm missing, where they're playing the Rangers, where Georgiev used to play.
What a crying shame.
Oh, well, you know what? It's 6 minutes left in the third, and they're up 4-1, so I'm happy. Which I know bums you out. Oh, Marchie got 2. He's on Hat Watch. Anyways, Georgiev, Amazon's Attack.
Yes. There's an editor's note in here that points out this entire book, this miniseries, takes place before issue 5 of Wonder Woman, which I guess that's just them saying that because Jara's here, and not Cassie even shows up, so it's just to explain why they're not with Wonder Woman, which is fine. So, no, I mean, this has been a fun book. I think this issue kind of continued that trend. You know, it is mainly focusing on Yara and Cassie. We get back to Mary eventually in the issue. But Yara's investigating a safe house, like an Amazonian safe house, which turns out the people who were there have disappeared. In fact, every Amazon who was in a safe house has mysteriously vanished into thin air. And there's just graffiti saying asylum all over the walls. So clearly that's something we're going to investigate. But this is where... we get a great couple of pages here where Yara turns and throws her what do you call that thing again?
The bolo,
thank you. And it turns out it's just Cassie coming in, and she just sort of dodges it and jumps out of the way. But yeah, it's them bantering backwards and forwards. The SWAT team shows up, and you know we get them sort of making their escape, which actually leads to one of the main running jokes of the issue, is that Cassie says she knows a secret exit, and then she just flies through the wall yelling secret exit, and that becomes a running gag for the rest of the issue.
I had a kind of up and down week, and I read this when I was not in a great headspace. I got to the secret exit, and then Yara kicking the guy out, yelling at her, like, telling Cassie, you don't get to call a secret exit if it's just you smashing through the wall. That gave me such a laugh and improved my mood. That, like, I'm very thankful for this book this week.
Oh yeah, it's a really fun light read. The characters are really nice and likable, and just kind of a pleasure to be around. That goes for Mary as well, who sort of like hides for a second in the prison, because we left her in the prison and Count Vertigo was there. She ducks out for a second so she can Shazam, comes back in, all super powered up, and tries to take on Count Vertigo. Although it turns out that Lady Savannah has enhanced Count Vertigo's abilities, so he turns them on, and she starts really kind of like freaking out and getting vertigo. But then Yara and Cassie show up. They come flying through the roof, to which Cassie yells "secret entrance" with a big shit-eating grin on her face.
This is making me really love Cassie again. I've forgotten how great she can be.
Oh yeah, I mean, all this stuff was fun. Them working together to get out of this place, all good fun. Mary Shazam's back into human form to take out a hole in the ceiling so they can go back out, and she gets the helicopters that are up there, and again Cassie yells out as she's flying with Mary on her back and holding Yara in her arms, says, "Now that was a secret exit."
Yeah.
So this was all fun banter. My favorite line of the whole book might have been as Cassie and Mary, who have not really spoken that much, start like really getting along. Yara just sort of grumbles, "Oh God, now there's two of you." That really got a chuckle out of me.
Yeah.
Like, it's really set up this chemistry between the three characters. And Cassie's is kind of a new addition to this.
This book. She was so in my brain from that Wonder Woman issue that I forgot she's not part of this squad. Yeah. So when she showed up, I was like, "Oh yeah," and then I was like, "Oh yeah, she hasn't been here from the start," but she just instantly ingratiated herself into this crew. That was real nice. I also like the page where Yara fights Vertigo, and she fights through it, and she talks about how her gods from the Amazon rainforest are different than like the Olympians and even the Bana Migdal, because they look down on everybody, right? Like they look down on the people as gods, where her gods are alive in the forest and the streams and everything, and in fact that gives her power, that she too is a god. And I just thought that whole sentiment with what's been going on with Wonder Woman and the whole idea of the sovereign, I just like that coming into play here.
Yeah.
Right. As kind of a reminder that she's strong on her own. And that's what ultimately, helps her get the edge for Cassie to punch out Vertigo.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to remember this character's name from the Bana Migdal.
Queen Faruka?
Faruka, that's what I was trying to remember. Yeah. So she was at the end of the last issue, because we don't get her till right near the end of this, but she was with the tree with the golden apples and all that. But the god that they thought was behind all this stuff isn't. And she's with Hoppy, and then it turns out that Peacemaker shows up. They've kidnapped Nubia from where she was at the start of the issue. And so it seems like these two are in a spot of trouble. I wonder if we'll get an issue focused more on them, because we focused on the young girls so much this issue. Or maybe the book's just shifting more to the younger characters as these two are kind of in trouble. But
so Faruka notices that Eris, the god of chaos, has been killed with the Bana Migdal spear.
Yeah.
It's the spear of Ishtar. And, so Hoppy points out, like, well, wait, that means how did someone get that? So it's got to be almost like this is an inside job. Whoever's doing this, it's someone that has ties to all the Amazons. And he said, and even Faruka is like, well, someone who can walk out of my fortress without raising an alarm. So I think that's pretty interesting. Like I'm not that well versed in the Bana Migdal stuff, right? So I wonder if this is just a new character, if it's someone that Faruka, we've seen Faruka with before. But yeah, Peacemaker showing up, I didn't think of that showing up. So
yeah. Honestly, really quick read. It's really fun and bright. I enjoyed the art. I think it really nails basically the happiness and sort of like fun nature of both Cassie and Mary, but the more stoic kind of like take no shit attitude of Yara. I think it nails those, and it really makes all their interactions really sing. And that's not to say that it's perfect throughout. There is some faces here or there that feel a little bit stilted or flat or whatever, but by and large, as far as like a sort of book of this type, which is kind of a B tier book, really easy, fun read, nice, bright and vibrant colors, fun enough layouts. Yeah, I like it's one of those things where there's kind of a ceiling to it, but it was a very delightful read, and I'm happy continuing it. So
yeah, and it gets all the characters. That's what I love about Josie Campbell so far is we already love her Mary Marvel, right? But her Yara has been pretty great, and even these other characters that I'm not that again well versed in, like Queen Faruka and Nubia, they all stand out and they all have their own identity, and so it does really feel like this community of Amazon. So like in the title of Amazon's Attack, this is like the Amazons book. If they keep it going long enough, right, we could have almost like a rotating cast of them. And I feel like as long as it's Josie Campbell, everyone feels right, and they all feel like there's not an interconnectedness, but they all feel unique to their own. And it with everything that's been going on in Wonder Woman, it feels nice to have a book that focuses on the other characters in that.
I feel like the editors not saying this series takes place before issue 5 of Wonder Woman implies to me that it's not an ongoing. That
True.
It's got a finite ending in mind, but I mean I could be wrong. I mean maybe that's just
And Josie Campbell also finds a way of telling this one story, because it started in the Mary Marvel Shazam book, then it went to that Revenge of the Gods that neither of us read, and now it's going on through here. So there's and maybe through Shazam as well, because we know Campbell's taking that book from Wade. So Campbell has a way of tying these things together to keep the story going.
I think seeing the chemistry between Yara, Mary, and Cassie, I think is a good sign for the chemistry she'll have with all the kids in Shazam when she takes that book over.
For sure. Because she already gets these ones down. We already know she can write Mary. And we do know, too, because Darla was pretty prominent in that Mary Marvel book as well. So, But yeah, this is a whole lot of fun. I'm glad that this book is fun and just doesn't feel like... Because when it first started, I thought it was just going to be a tie-in to this Wonder Woman stuff, right? Like, Amazon's attack. This is... it's so much more because it's telling its own story. It's
set in the context of that, but it's sort of teasing this killer on the loose and someone's setting them up, and so there's kind of its own mystery to kind of get to, and then of course this idea that Peacemaker's been sent or is working with Axe, which means Waller's probably connected to Axe as well. So so maybe some interesting stuff there. And even thematically with Beast World, not that I'm saying they're that connected, but the idea that if the whole point of Beast World is Waller wanting to make everyone hate the superheroes, and then the point of Wonder Woman right now is that everyone's hating the Amazons, those two kind of go hand in hand.
For sure.
Thematically, so. All right, what are you giving Amazon's Attack?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I'm just going to go out of a 7. But it's a really fun 7. Like, I having a good time. So, there you go. Power Girl, issue 5, Leah Williams writing with David Baldeon on the art. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so this is a issue that is, so it's a different artist than who we've had. And this is just an issue that focuses on Streaky, and it's called Streaky Does a Big Stretch. I'll get the negative out of the way. This almost feels like it's a story for one of those annuals or one of the big collections of the Super Pets. This feels like it would be Streaky's because it's largely silent and it lets the art do a lot of the work. So Baldeon does a very good job drawing cats. I'll give him that. Right. So it starts with this cat walking through the city, and it gets the attention of these two guys wearing the Laugh Now, Cry Later theater masks. Right. Sees them loading up this crate of cats into the back of this van. So this little white cat follows to where it's going. And then we get into Streaky hanging out in Power Girl and Omen's apartment, just going around. And it does this really cool thing with a lot of the human dialogue where we're only getting words that are familiar to Streaky. So it's kind of this jarbled where you can kind of try to sound it out, which I did, and it didn't make any more sense. But it would end with Streaky as a name or food, or kisses along those lines. So Streaky goes to see Omen. Omen's doing a facial mask. And when she turns around, Streaky gets spooked and lets some heat vision through to where Omen throws up a block and still cuddles him. Omen drops him off to see Paige. She's rocking an eye patch because of all the stuff that had happened. But as Paige falls asleep as she's working on this thing, Streaky gets on a cape, which still don't know where the cape came from, and goes out and sees this meeting of cats, where the white cat, I'm assuming, tells them that the other ones were stolen. So Streaky goes through the city investigating, and they end up using their super hearing to find these guys in the masks. Takes them down and then follows to where the van was going, where it was parked. And it looks like it's this makeshift science lab where this person in scrubs is experimenting on these stolen animals from across the city. Streaky lets them all go. They end up, what looks like they're trying to inject this serum into them. Ends up breaking. They go free. The cat makes it back to its owner. Streaky looks up. Does that Superman where Superman's soaring up and looking down and saying goodbye to everybody. To go back to Paige and curl up and do a kitty ball at her feet as she's asleep. And the issue ends with Kara stopping by, saying that they're going to need Paige's like reality punching powers, which is something that I thought they were getting away from, because Kara needs help in doing something, and this is something that only Power Girl can do. It's pretty big, and it might be illegal. So it ends with Paige having her morning coffee, to teasing the team up of the Supergirls. So pretty fun issue. Not much to it. Just kind of Streaky saving these cats from a illegal pet lab, or not even pet lab, an illegal animal lab. And again, very quick read. Like I was starting to panic that I didn't get enough read today, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to cover Power Girl. And then I sat down to read it, and it took no time at all because of the issue. So the art's pretty decent. It does the animals better than the people. The people are kind of very cartoony and kind of not a caricature way. It's just not the same style of art that we had before. So, but yeah, it is really solid issue. I'll give it a 7.
All right. So I'll take us out a Batman Brave and the Bold issue 9, specifically just the first story, because this is the Tom King and Mitch Gerads story. It's been a 4-part thing about Batman and Joker's first interaction together.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Winning Card, for the record. So, yeah, this was obviously something we were looking forward to. Gorgeous art. It's wrapping up this thing that's really made Joker feel like a horror villain, something that's this ethereal, creepy bad guy. Kind of loved it, and I think this is a solid final chapter. In some ways, I think it might be like almost hurt a little bit from the big gap from the last issue, because it kind of feels like we get just the climax and not like much of like the creepy Joker stuff is that we were getting consistently before. And I don't think that's actually something this issue should have had. It's just that because it's been a while since issue 3, I was looking forward to getting some of that, and instead it's more just the final confrontation and the fallout from it, if you will. But Batman's chasing Joker down in the Batmobile while Joker's in like a cop car. And they have this confrontation in the woods where you got the ha-ha-has, the old film silent movie panels, as Batman's looking for him. We get this gorgeous full-page spread of Joker jumping out with a knife. And
Gerads draws such a lifeless Joker that's also full of life, right? Like the eyes, so the body proportions and everything's there, and you feel the motion, but just it's like Quint says about the shark, their lifeless eyes, like a doll's eyes. That's what Joker's working with, and it gives me the creeps every time I see his Joker. So, mission accomplished, Gerads.
He's a living paradox, is what you're saying.
True.
So, yeah, swipes at Batman, and there's a bit of some punchy. But at the end of the punching, Batman realizes the knife is, in his stomach. Joker's managed to stab him. So, we get this thing where Batman actually passes out with the pain, and wakes up, seemingly after dawn, because the lighting, the coloring's completely changed to being this sort of warm glow. And Joker's just sitting there injured, up to a tree, right next to Batman, basically, and he's not left. So this confrontation ends up continuing, and at this point, Alfred's came looking for him because he's worried. He wants to fight Batman. He wants to make sure Bruce is okay.
And Bruce does not want Alfred there. He's trying to, basically keeping him away. And that goes back to As the Chase, where Alfred was kind of chastising him. He was like, you said you weren't going to do this. You got to come back to me, and this kind of stuff. That's what the subtext is. So stop doing this. Stop chasing this madman. And so when Alfred shows up, Joker can hear that he's talking to somebody, and Joker pops awake, and it's another one of these creepy moments. But I really liked that it added a sense of tension to where like Bruce needs to get this done with because he cannot have Joker around Alfred. Yeah,
so Batman pulls the blade out of his stomach as he's telling this story about how his father would always bait the worm himself because it's respect to the worm to not have someone else do it. And Batman's like, but to me, it doesn't seem to matter. Honor or no honor, the worm's still dead. And this really felt like a homage to the end of Killing Joke to me, this next part, because Batman comes over to him, seemingly... like you're not really sure if he's going to kill him. Like Batman's very menacing. He's looking down at him. It does that classic thing where it's just the all black cowl with the white eyes, and he picks up the knife like Michael Goddamn Myers, and he tells a joke. And this is what made me think of the end of Killing Joke, because if you remember the end of Killing Joke, that ambiguous ending in the rain where did Batman finally kill Joker or not? Batman starts laughing. Right, that's the end of the story, is that they sort of laugh together, and then the panels go down to the water, and that's how the book ends. Here, Batman tells a joke. He tells, it's a really bad joke. He's like, the Batmobile wasn't starting, so I went to the mechanic and asked him to check the battery, and the mechanic, after thinking about it, said, "What's a Terry?" The joke being that because Batman calls everything the Batmobile, Batwing, Bat, whatever.
Look, you say it's not a good joke. I think it's a great dad joke. And this just seeds
Well, actually, no. Here's the thing. I'm not even critiquing it, because Joker brings up that it's a shit joke, and Joker critiques it later on, and I agreed with the son of a bitch, which really did not make me feel comfortable, but he's right.
No, but I think it works in the moment of, and the idea of a structure of a joke, right? That Joker's looking into it way too much, and that's kind of what they say about comedy, right? Is the more you start dissecting comedy, the less something ends up being funny. And you could almost say the same thing about Joker, right? The more you shine a light on Joker, the less of that air that he has, So so while it wasn't a great joke, it's a prime on dad joke that I feel like Bruce would make, right? Because Bruce doesn't really get humor. He's very, like, I say that like he's a robot. He's not, but like, as Batman, he's not doing too much laughing, right?
Well,
so the fact that this is coming from this menacing figure as he's holding the knife, it almost makes it worse than the Joker, right?
Well, I don't think so much the point is that he doesn't get humor per se. Like, one of the things that he says later to the Joker when he goes to see him, because, it does this ambiguous thing where it cuts to, like, Alfred and him fishing, and Bruce is kind of telling him about what happened and how he was still there and when he passed out and all that. And, even this conversation is very important for the story, because it's Alfred talking about how his father also made mistakes. Because Bruce kind of criticizes him. Well, if my father was perfect, he wouldn't have went into an alleyway in a tuxedo, in a bad part of town kind of thing. And he's like, no, your father made mistakes just like you do. But the difference is that his dad tried to surround himself with other smart people who would help him, whereas Batman does not do that. Batman, at least early days Batman, is very much about being solitary and being fighting this war alone. But it's this interesting idea that like him and Joker are very similar, and that's the scary part of it, is that there's like they're both obsessed with something in the same way. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. And it finally reveals at the end of the conversation that he didn't stab Joker, he just sort of like stabbed the ground next to his neck, in a kind of a menacing way, and Joker's got this big grin in his face. It's all that, but Alfred's saying, when you look into him, that this thing that you do, it's this, when you first started saving people, I thought, oh, maybe this is a good thing Master Bruce is doing. Maybe this isn't a sign that, you know, we failed or whatever, and maybe this is actually healthy. But then once the Joker started doing his thing, Alfred kind of recognized some similarities with Batman, and even says to Bruce, like, when you looked into his eyes, don't you see something familiar? Isn't that something that you should be scared of, kind of thing? So yeah.
That image of him is in black and white too, with the red from the blood and the purple from his eye, and he's just creepily smiling, and it just, oh man, Gerads knows mood. I'll give him, you know, all the other praise that we give him. This one really is this story is kind of dictated by the mood and the tone, and he just nails it.
Yeah. So there's that scene. This is one of the things that suffered a little bit from the delays, from like, or not delays, but how long ago the last part was. Is that I vaguely remember this other rich guy that wanted to catch Joker, but I don't remember it well enough to really completely get this scene. I don't think.
I just know him as that. Oh, that's the guy that they drew to look like John Barenthal.
Yes, he's got the big chin. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a great bit of art though at the end of this where Batman or Bruce is in shadow and you can sort of see the Batman eyes even though he's not in Batman outfit. That's really good. But yeah, Joker is in Arkham and Batman goes to see him here at the end of the book, and this felt the other homage to Killing Joke because that's how that story starts.
That's right. That's right.
Very, very similar, like side-on view as Batman's walking past the doors. Very intentional. But Batman goes to ask a question: "Why didn't you kill me?" And of course, if you're a long-time Batman fan, you know this idea that Joker doesn't want to kill Batman because he likes playing the game with Batman is such a thing. So, but it makes sense that this being the first Batman-Joker interaction, this story, that we're only just getting to that realization at the end of it for Batman. But I think this is the first time in the book that Joker's dialogue isn't the silent film. That now it's just like, I mean, you don't see him, like it all comes from behind the little glass window on his door in Arkham, and there's like a little smiley face that he's drawn on it, but you never see him. It's just this sort of like almost spooky, like directionless voice just coming from behind the door. But yeah, even Joker like sort of prods at him from being similar to him, and Batman trying to defend himself, saying but Batman says this is the beginning of something, the two of us, and Joker's like, I think so too, does it have to be? And then we actually go into the room and see Joker sitting in the darkness in his straitjacket as he continues this conversation.
And the slow like push in too, like almost Norman Bates-esque as the Joker's talking. It's
not even esque. I think it's directly that. Yeah.
Directly inspired. All right.
Yeah, I would say so, for sure. I
like this too because it's where he critiques the joke and it falls flat, and Batman's like, I don't think you get it, and then so Joker's like, no, I get it. I always get it. It's just not funny, And then Bruce goes, I could say the same about you, and Joker laughs. It's not like a laugh, but it's like So this is the game we're gonna play. It's like it clicks with him.
That was one of my favorite lines. Here is that line of no, I get it. It's just not funny. like that the idea of Batman saying, no, I get who you are and what you're doing, but it's just not funny, and it's never going to be. It basically it ends with Joker saying, "Oh, Batman, my Batman, brave and bold, we're going to have such a grand time together, aren't we?" And then you just get one last silent panel of the laughter.
We're almost like the film too is falling apart. Like it's so damaged,
and it
makes the smiley face.
Yeah, it's not just the smiley face. You'll notice his bat ears in the mouth as well.
That's right. It almost does. It does. It looks like the bat that flies towards Bruce.
Yeah.
In year one. Oh, I didn't even notice that till right now.
Yeah, it's neat.
That's fantastic.
It's a cool little thing. The art is gorgeous, obviously. The final points that it makes is great. I'm looking forward to reading this. This is probably a great one sitting just to read these 4 issues back to back.
Just don't read it at night when you're by yourself. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I really loved this, and talking about it again is making me realize just how much I loved some of these little moments of like Joker being easily the worst villain Batman's ever encountered. So there is maybe a moment where you think, oh, will he kill him? I mean, we know he's not going to, but
right.
Like that, but for him, like, should I finally cross that line?
Yeah.
But then doesn't.
Well, and that's where that tension comes in, right? With Alfred, we know it doesn't, but King and Gerads do such a great job of the urgency Bruce has to keep Alfred away, and that almost, it gives it like that. Well, I'm gonna have to do this. It gives it that tone, and where it ends with him with a knife sticking next to the into the ground. And just a big shit-eating grin on Joker's face, but yeah, this is one of the best Joker stories ever. I'm willing to put that.
That's bold. I think I like the idea of Batman telling Alfred to stay away and not get close to Joker is kind of like almost unknowing to himself, but he's almost kind of like admitting that Joker's the dark side of him, and that keeping Alfred away is also a sign of not letting Alfred get too close to him. Right. And I think that's a really good little bit of subtext there. Yeah,
it works in parallel.
Yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, obviously it has to end with the beats of we're going to, it's that line from Dark Knight. We're going to do this forever, aren't we? Right. Yeah. So that was always going to be the point that it ends on. I think this issue only suffers a little bit in that because it's been so long since the other three, and I almost wanted more Joker, going after people because we haven't had it in so long.
There was I don't know if you mentioned it. It might have got lost because I was looking through the art, but when Bruce is fighting Joker, he's laying in the hits, he's listing the people that Joker's killed.
Oh yeah, that's so. And good.
It really brings out that it's this quest for vengeance and to right these wrongs, is that's what also drives him to the point to where Joker can also see we're not that different. We just are on opposite sides. I kind of like that vibe there, that as he's naming these people that Joker probably doesn't remember, right? But Bruce does, and that's why he's doing this. So really, really good sequence there.
Yeah, for sure. I think this was a great interpretation of the first Batman Joker meeting. I had read, way back in my early comic reading days, I read the Brubaker version of this, which was the Batman Who Laughs. No, it was the Man Who Laughs, sorry.
Man Who Laughs, yep.
And I remember that being a solid enough version of the first Joker Batman meeting, a bit more traditional, I guess. Whereas this was obviously a bit more ethereal and more like a horror movie of just how much impact Joker has especially when you can contrast it to most versions of Batman's origin are about him making the criminal underworld fear him, right? And they have to know to fear the Batman. And then Joker is just this horror movie force in this. There's something really interesting in that. And I think they also tying it to the silent film. And we've talked a lot, especially the first issue, about what that does and how that sort of creates a certain vibe for the character. But I think as a whole, silent film inherently feels old to us. And it's 100 years old at this point.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel like Joker coming out of the shadows to prey on Gotham isn't something new coming out of the shadows to prey on Gotham. It's something that was always there before. That's just
been revealed.
Yeah. So all that stuff's great. This is fantastic.
I can't wait to read this all in one sitting so I can really get it. So the moment this collection comes out, I'll definitely be picking that up because again, I do have to say, if not it's the best, it's definitely my favorite of the Joker stories that we've gotten in recent memory. So but yeah, it kind of does the impossible there, where it kind of makes me like the Joker,
Yeah, you've not read other good Joker stories. Come on now.
I'm going to tell you, I can't name any off the top of my head right now that aren't the Killing Joke, which I'm not that big of a fan of. I think it's fine. But yeah, I can't, nothing comes across my brain at this instant. I'm sure if I looked at a list, I'd be like, oh yeah, that one was good. And that one's good. I'm sure they're out there, but this one really made an impact.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, No, very good. I'm sure a nice deluxe hardcover. What's interesting is that it's not actually that much longer than the Killing Joke. I mean, Killing Joke was just a one shot, but it's like 60 pages or something like that. But this is only 4 regular sized issues worth of stories, so it's only about 100 pages, if that even. So, yeah. What are you rating this Brave and the Bold story?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
Yeah, I have a 9. In some ways, it may be my least favorite of the 4, but it's still fantastic and still does so many like great things. So, very good. All right, well, that'll take us out to the final part of the show where we pick our favorite things of the week, favorite panel/moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course our top 5 books. So, we'll start off with panel/moment. What are you going with, Matt?
All right. So, for the sake of brevity, usually I like to list a whole bunch. There's 2 that instantly came to mind, and there's the end of the Penguin, the last page, which is very, very expertly done. However, I'm going to go for the funsies because we just talked about the really dark book, and it's going to be the Secret Entrance. The first time that dropped in Amazon's Attack.
Okay.
It gave me the chuckle that I needed, so that's mine.
Yeah, I've got a couple things that I could pick here. Obviously, there's some good ones in Penguin. Detective's got a couple. Brave and the Bold is really making a case for having a moment. I think I might go with Beast World, though. And I think the moment where Amanda Waller basically just has that look in her face where Dick realizes, oh, you want us, or you want to kill them, and like realizing just how bad Waller is. I think that moment has a lot of weight to it. So I think for me, I'm going to go with that. But it was very close though. There's a few different things I could have picked this week. Cover of the week. I was looking at these while you were talking. There's a really good variant for Penguin by Raffaele De La Torre. It's a sort of side view of like Penguin and the cities kind of around him. Looks like an oil painting. Very nice.
Yeah.
There's a Redondo cover for Brave and the Bold, which is like the Batman animated series, like holding up the cape. It looks very, very nice. There's also a good detective cover by Federici with Batman in the tree.
It's very, very creepy. I like it.
Yeah. So these are all very good. I think if I'm picking one though, I'll probably go with the Redondo animated series one for Brave and the Bold. It's just such a fun take on a classic image, but with like a modern looking Batman. So it's very nice. What are you picking?
So there's a couple from Power Girl I want to spotlight. There is the Jeff Spokes cardstock variant, which is Kara or Paige at the gym flexing on all these big guys. And there's also a Danny cover that just it looks like a take on that old Marilyn Monroe cover, but it's Paige with her jacket instead of like the pink dress. Those ones I really like. But my cover is going to be from Flash. It's the Matt Taylor cardstock variant, and it's got. I'm assuming this is Jay, and it's all of these it's like this chaotic image of like these concentric circles coming around, and like kind of floating off of him, like almost like steam, and he looks just very sullen and down. And the color work here, it's got the blues and the reds, the whites, oranges. Everything just pops, and it's fantastic.
Cool. All right, best art of the week.
This is super tough because I really liked all of the art in Tech, but does anything beat out Gerads? I don't think so. I'm gonna have to give it to Brave and the Bold.
Yeah,
I thought I could make a push. I thought you were gonna go, Tech did have some good art.
Nah,
but yeah,
it's Gerads. Gerads is winning. There's definitely a lot of good art this week, but yeah, Gerads is taking it. All right, top 5 books of the week, Matt. Go.
All right, 1's gonna be Tech. 2 is Brave and the Bold. 3 is Penguin. 4 is Amazon's Attack, and 5 is Beast World.
All right, 1 for me is Brave and the Bold. 2 is I'm actually a lot conflicted here. Yeah, 1's Brave and the Bold. 2 is going to be Beast World, I think. 3 Detective. 4 Penguin. And 5 Flash. Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
So I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. It's a quieter week, but we do have Batman Superman World's Finest Annual. Oh, it's a week 5. I didn't even realize.
Yep.
Yeah, so we got Batman Superman Annual. We have Batman and Robin Annual. We have Titans Beast World issue 6. Which is that the last issue of that? Is that the?
I believe so.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was 6 or 7 issues. We have Alan Scott Green Lantern issue 4, Batman Off World issue 3. We have a Trinity special, so aka a Wonder Woman annual, and then a Power Girl Uncovered. So that's just covers, and then DC Power, 2024 issue 1.
Okay, so there's one new story in the Trinity special. It's mainly a collection of the backups.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's not even necessarily something we should seek out then. Okay, good to know.
Well, if there's one new story, I'm definitely on the hook for reading it because I'll pick it up. So I'll let you know when I read it next week if it's something you should dive into. But I'll definitely cover the new story because I don't have much else. Like I'm not reading Batman and Robin.
Of course,
the Power Girl is just the covers. So I got Off-World, Trinity, World's Finest, and Beast World. So
yeah, I've got what? I've got 4 books, 5 if I read the Trinity. So I'll probably do one Patreon book next week and then do the other one the week after, I imagine. But yeah, so yeah, week 5 always like kind of a weird podge, but at least we get like 2 or 3 annuals here to tide us over, and I do appreciate that they've got an event issue dropping, and they moved a couple of their mini-series to this week just so that it wasn't completely dead. I do appreciate that, so keep it up, DC. Alright, that is the show, pretty much. Thank you very much for joining us. You can let us know what you thought of the books in the comments, or get us on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast. Of course, you can support everything by going over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there. You get a little bit early access at the $5 and up tiers, but mostly it just helps, keep the show coming. And but any and all help is very much appreciated. But that is the show. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next time. So keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.